The story begins with a girl and a young man having tea together, just the two of them. The young man looked at Elena restful and could not take his eyes off her because she was only 14 years old and she was already such a beauty. He assumed that when the girl grew up, she would be simply dazzling, after which he asked when she would answer him how much longer would she make him wait. After thinking for a bit, our heroine answered briefly that she didn't want to. The guy was taken aback by the fact that she dared to refuse him the heir to the ducal family. When the interlocutor asked why, Elena explained that there was no particular reason, he was simply not her type. And in general, the girl liked his younger brother more. As in the original work, even though he has a fiancée, he flirts with everyone left and right. But to so tactlessly propose an illegal relationship is too much even for him. The guy seemed not to want to believe his ears and asked if she was sincerely saying this. Restful smiled and asked if she wanted to repeat it again, after which she said that she liked Lexion, his younger brother, and not him, Mr. Killian. Some time ago, our heroine arrived at a luxurious estate. She was immediately met by the butler and greeted saying that she was welcome, after which he introduced himself and said that his name was Alto. He was an assistant to the ducal family of H. Ilos. Then he invited them to follow him, and they headed towards the luxurious castle. Inside, they were met by a senior maid named Mary, who informed them that from now on, this girl would be her personal maid. The assistant immediately greeted me and said that her name was Rosie and that she was very pleased to meet me. Then she took the suitcase in her hands and added that she shouldn't worry about her things and carry them around with her. While Elena was thanking her, the butler coughed and said that the lady needed to greet the master. Meanwhile, all the maids were discussing how surprised they were when they saw her. One of them noted that she looked very much like Mr. Keene. The other said that there was nothing surprising about that, since the lady was his own blood. The third one exclaimed that she was really sorry, because being alone at such a young age is not easy. The girl objected that it was good, that at least this way their master would now take care of her. In fact, she was very lucky. The maid was indignant. How could she say that? How could this be a good thing after all her father had died? On the way, the little girl looked at the large number of decorations throughout the castle and noted that while you were cleaning it all up, there wouldn't be a second left to rest. A little earlier, Elna heard screams in the street. A little girl begged her mother not to send her there because she did not want to be a servant. The woman cried and asked for forgiveness, as she could do nothing because of her father's debts. The same thing was said about her, that apparently her father was a knight who owed a lot of money. And since the debtor himself died, they will have to be given to the daughter. What a pity, so small and without parents. After some time, they reached the Duke's office, and the butler said that she could go in there. Our heroine wondered if she would really work there now. She couldn't make mistakes. There was a young man sitting in the room who told her to come closer. She thought to herself that she felt a serious force, probably because he was a duke, but still she couldn't give in to it. Then she approached his table, bowed, and greeted him, calling him master. The guy asked in surprise, "Which owner?" It seems there was a misunderstanding. Resfel began to get nervous and really hoped that he wouldn't tell her to pay off her father's debt immediately. Where did she get that kind of money from? But the man said that she had not come to the castle as a servant, so there was no need to call him that way. The young man invited her here to look after the baby. When the girl asked in surprise why the Duke replied that he had a debt to her father, Elena exclaimed that it was not her dad who owed him, but on the contrary, perhaps he was once rich, but she simply did not know about it. The man interrupted her and replied that he owed him more than money, so he could now call him Lord Duke, and he could consider this place his home. Our heroine looked at him in shock and could not believe what she had just heard. After this, the maid led her into the room, and Elena asked if this would really be her bedroom. Now the girl answered that, yes, let her come in quickly. When the maid froze and did not take her eyes off her, Resfel asked why she was looking at her like that. Rosie answered, because the lady is very pretty, but there is no time for that. It is necessary to choose beautiful clothes for hers. Then she grabbed the little girl, who didn't understand anything, by the hand and dragged her along with her into the dressing room. After some time, after trying on different dresses, an outfit was finally chosen that suited her perfectly. The maid silently admired that she was simply dazzling and was definitely Kane's daughter. You just couldn't take your eyes off her, perhaps because she looked so much like him. When the girl said that she felt very awkward, the girl exclaimed that she should not talk nonsense because she had become even more beautiful, after which she asked if she would like to see the castle and drink tea in the garden. Since she had dressed up, Elena answered that it was fine. After a while, when she saw various cakes, the little one exclaimed that it was the first time she had seen something so appetizing. The maid was very glad that she liked them and enjoyed their taste. Suddenly, our heroine saw two boys heading towards her and wondered who they were. Resfel couldn't help but notice that they were both very handsome. When Rosie whispered in her ear that these were young gentlemen, it dawned on the little girl that these were the Duke's sons. The older one greeted her and stated that this meant that she was Cain's daughter. The little one was so confused that she just stood there and silently looked at him, then realized that she was staring at his face and didn't even say hello. After which she bowed and said that her name was Elena Resfel. It was very nice to meet you. The boy introduced himself as Killian, and this was his younger brother, Lexian Helos. Our heroine noted to herself that he is very cute since he gets embarrassed and blushes. Suddenly, the elder said that he heard that she had no plans for today. How about chatting with him alone? For a little while, he liked her up. At night, our heroine tossed and turned in bed as she was dreaming about a past life. At that time, the girl was an ordinary office plankton who was drowning in a pile of work every day. She lived in an atmosphere of terrible competition. That's why she always wanted to take at least a little break from this routine. The only joy in her past life was the fantasy romance novels she read on her way to work. Suddenly, the bus braked sharply, and the girl's phone slipped out of her hands. The young man decided to help her lift it and accidentally saw what was written there. There was a part of the story, plus, about the close relationship between the main characters. It was a fantasy romance for adults about regrets called No Regrets. Elena, in this work, was the villain and the lover of the main character. When the girl got pregnant, she screamed that it was Killian's child and that he shouldn't leave. But the guy did it anyway. After such a dream, our heroine suddenly woke up in a cold sweat. It just can't be that he left her even though she was pregnant. The next day, the maid opened the window and exclaimed that it was a very pleasant morning. Then she turned to Resfel and asked what she had dreamed about the previous night. The little girl was deep in thought, so she simply sighed heavily and didn't answer. The maid did not understand what was happening to her, so she came closer and tried to attract attention. Then the girl couldn't take it anymore and screamed what happened in the end, after which she grabbed her face and worriedly asked why she was so pale. Had she not gotten enough sleep? When Elena replied that it might be because of the new place, Rosie demanded to tell her the truth. Apparently, she was so amazed by the beauty of the Duke's sons that she could not sleep for a long time. Then she added that it was normal. She couldn't sleep there normally at first either. Their lord the Duke is truly so handsome and stunning that it is difficult to find words. The sons, of course, completely took after their father and are incredibly handsome. The maid really couldn't sleep at first because her heart was beating like crazy because of their unearthly beauty. Our heroine thought to herself that it was good that she wasn't the only one who fell in love with everyone, after which she began to shake her head in different directions and convince herself that it was just a dream, and most likely it did not have much meaning. Then she collected her thoughts and asked the maid if Mr. Killian had a bride. When Rosie replied that of course the little girl thought to herself that it was a stupid question, because how could the heir of a noble family not have a bride? It is necessary to ask about something else, something that no one spoke about, but which she had in her dream, after which she asked the question whether that girl was a lady from the Oswald Earl family. When the maid replied that she was right, it dawned on the little one that it was not just a dream. Just yesterday, she did not know that the Oswald family existed, and that it was a count's family. For her, a commoner, the aristocrats seemed to live in another world. How many ordinary people would be interested in which feudal lord owned their lands, and how would they know what counts there were? And our heroine had never heard anything about this dynasty in her life. But now she knows what the interior of these counts is like, and she can imagine it so vividly, although she has never been there. Although she could not help but know Jane Oswald, the girl was always the main character in her life. After some time, the girl was sitting near a flower bed and telling fortunes with a flower. She tore off the petals one by one and asked whether the young man was a scoundrel, yes or no. Suddenly, the girl heard some sounds that were coming from very close to her. When she approached that place, she saw knights training. Probably her father also trained there in his time. Looking at the strong young men, Elena thought that there was a real sanctuary there, and it was necessary to make pilgrimages there. When some of the boys paid attention to her, the girl thought that she shouldn't be annoying, so they would see each other later. On the way, she noticed a walking path, which was basically what was expected from a rich family. Walking along it, Restful thought that she was so stuffy, but now it was as if she was born again. Suddenly, she heard a desperate cry and started running in the direction from which it came. Perhaps someone was wounded. She felt very uneasy. Running to that place, she saw Killian, who was standing next to his younger brother. The book said that the main reason Lexian became a duke was his brother. He pushed aside his elder brother and got the title, and the main catalyst for this was Killian's constant bullying. Meanwhile, the young man was threatening the younger one and telling him not to even think about screaming. Our heroine couldn't stand it, quickly ran up, and locked the boy in with her, saying that this shouldn't be done. The guy's expression immediately changed to a friendly one, and he asked in surprise what Elena was doing in this place. The girl reached the training center. Did she really want to see him that much? Restfel was very irritated by this behavior, and wondered if he had gone crazy, after which she asked how such a thing could be said in such a situation. Killian laughed loudly and asked if that was why she was talking like that now. The little one became even more angry. From such treatment, she simply cannot believe it. He does not even consider his younger brother a person. The boy added that there was no need to pay attention to him. It would be better to go for a walk together, since they had already met. But Elena snorted and told him to go for a walk on his own. Then she leaned over to Lexion and asked if everything was okay with the gentleman. When the little girl wanted to touch him with her hand, he abruptly pushed her away from himself. Our heroine realized that because of fear of his older brother, he even refuses to accept help. But she did not give up and made another attempt, saying that she would walk him home. Restful then placed the baby on her back, while Killian shouted that there was no need to worry about him. The little one replied that it seemed that the heir of the Duke of Halos called his brother, that won and resorted to violence, the noble name of the father suffered because of him. The young man was so confused that he couldn't even find what to answer. The girl told the baby to be patient just a little bit, and soon she would carry him home. I thought to myself that they say that you can understand a person's nature by one action. This guy is a real piece of trash that can't even be recycled. Our heroine will never become this scoundrel's lover. She doesn't even want to think about it, and also will not allow Lexion to be constantly bullied by his older brother. When the girl brought him to the estate, the maids were shocked by his condition. Our heroine was furious and did not understand why Killian was behaving this way with a small child. The head maid said that, fortunately, he had no serious injuries. Let them help him keep calm, and it was time for her to go. Suddenly, the girl bowed and thanked Elena for saving him, after which she introduced herself and said that her name was Sophie. She had been looking after the younger gentleman since he was in diapers. Restfel didn't understand why she was thanking her for this. Did she really know that Killian was making fun of him? After which she said that if she has been looking after him since childhood, then it means she knows about everything. The maid replied that yes, their younger master had started to be bullied about 6 months ago. It all started when the master went off to war. Young Master Killian naturally began to replace him. Although he is young, he is still the rightful heir. The girl even felt respect for him, but at some point abrasions and wounds began to appear on the younger gentleman's body. The boy even had nightmares in which he asked his brother to stop bullying him. Sophie couldn't even imagine that the young master would do this to the younger one. The others also gradually began to find out about it. The estate staff began to whisper that the elder brother was beating Lexion and that he had serious injuries. But who could dare to speak of this, for he was the Duke's legitimate heir, and they were only ordinary commoners. Elena noted to herself that he had been hopeless since childhood. It was important for her not to allow the original course of history, but she could not do everything alone. Suddenly, a butterfly appeared near her, and our heroine was very surprised when it managed to fly into her room. Going out onto the balcony, the girl decided to try to change the future at all costs. After some time, the baby came to his senses, and a servant immediately ran up to him, exclaiming that he had woken up. After giving him something to drink, the girl said that the family doctor had come in and said that, fortunately, he had no injuries. The boy replied that he understood everything, after which he asked how he ended up in his room. When the maid said that Mrs. Elena had brought it, the youngest was very surprised. The kid immediately remembered how he had convinced himself not to cry, because the members of the direct line of the Hylos family should be the strongest. In the evening, when our heroine was walking, she heard Killian's voice calling her by name. Taken by surprise, she quickly hid and simply peered out from the bushes. The boy asked what was going on, whether she had decided to play hide-and-seek with him. Let him stop behaving like this and just come out to him. The girl did not understand why he was behaving like this and panicked. The elder one might say, didn't give her any peace at all and was constantly trying to get to her. He was constantly waiting for her everywhere and persuading her to go for a walk with him under various pretexts. After some time, the guy had already gotten on her nerves so much that she didn't know where to go from him. Does the young man really think that he can please her even after she saw him bully his brother? As the little girl watched Killian continue to wander around and call out her name, she thought that he was an incredibly clingy guy. Suddenly, she heard some sounds and decided to go see what was going on. Not far from her, she found a small rabbit sitting in the bushes. The animal looked sad, and she realized that something was wrong with it, but she didn't know what to do. Maybe she should call the vet. As soon as our heroine touched it, a magical formation appeared around it, after which the rabbit exclaimed that this was now his mistress and ran towards her. Elena was shocked that this animal was talking. Maybe she just heard it or was hallucinating, but no. The rabbit looked at her kindly and thanked her for saving him. He thought he would die today because he was very weak, but now he is alive thanks to his mistress. When the little girl asked who he was, the animal replied that his name was Rennie. The little girl remarked that his name was very cute and then asked what his true nature was. The new friend was confused by such a question and did not know what to answer, so he simply muttered that he was Rennie. The girl laughed and answered that her name was Elena, although she had not asked about her name at all. The rabbit finally understood what she wanted to know and exclaimed that he was the spirit of the earth. He had been weak lately, but now he is alive. Thanks to the mistress, her strength has seeped into him. The girl did not remember Elena having any connection with spirits in the original. It is hard to believe that a person with such powers was described as just someone's lover. Noticing that the girl was thinking about something, Rennie asked if something was bothering her. The girl replied that everything was fine. But why did he call her his mistress? The rabbit replied that he simply knew that she was now his new owner. Restful replied that, okay, if he says so, then that's how it is, after which she hugged him and exclaimed that, why is he so soft? Hearing someone's footsteps, Elena thought that the young man had found her after all, but it turned out to be Lexion's youngest son, who was walking towards her. Our heroine breathed a sigh of relief as she thought it was Killian, after which she asked how the boy was feeling at the moment. The baby thought to himself that she was still worried about him, so he should thank her, then replied that he was fine, and thank you very much. Elena replied that she was very glad to hear such words from the younger gentleman. The little one thought to himself that he needed to collect his thoughts and stop being nervous, after which he asked what she was doing in this place. Restful replied that she was here because of this cutie she found by chance. Lexion couldn't understand who she was pointing at, since it was completely empty. Maybe she liked flowers? But the girl stretched out her hands in front of her and asked if he wanted to touch it. The boy did not understand what she meant. Did she really want him to touch her hands? After which, he began to touch her, and our heroine herself stopped understanding what was happening. The rabbit said that other people cannot see him and cannot pet him. Elena looked at him in amazement and thought that it turned out that only she could see him. Lexion already felt awkward, so he shuddered and pulled his hand away. Restful asked if he saw the rabbit. The boy began to look around and say that there was no one else nearby. The little girl stated that it was true. Rennie exclaimed that, of course, how could she not believe him? Elena suddenly grabbed Lexion and tried to stroke the rabbit with his hand, but it turned out that she was stroking her own palm. The young man did not understand why she was behaving like that. Suddenly, Killian's voice was heard continuing to search for our heroine and shouting that it was enough to play hide-and-seek. The girl was already very tired of all this, and she wondered why he was so clingy. Then she hugged the boy so that he would not be afraid and told him to be quieter, after which she muttered that he was probably hungry and they could go eat. She wanted to have dinner with him. After some time, the butler said that this was unexpected. The young man meant the younger gentleman. The man smiled and replied that yes. He didn't think the guy would suggest having dinner together. While dressing, the Duke asked if there was any strange smell coming from him. The young man immediately began to sniff him from all sides, after which he said that there was no smell coming from him, and if there was one, it would only be from the ink. The Duke said that he still cannot forget the expression on his face when he returned from the war. The youngest son was stunned by his father's appearance, so he simply ran away from him. The butler explained that the gentleman had just returned from a trip, which is why he reeked of blood. The man did not expect Lexion to be so gentle, but for him it is permissible because he is very young. Then he asked how the elder was working. The assistant replied that at first he was at a loss, but later it became so good that they no longer felt his absence. The Duke stated that since he was the heir, he must behave appropriately. After some time, the table was set and it was time to begin the meal. The eldest son stared at our heroine and winked at her constantly. The girl tried to pretend that she didn't notice this and didn't even look in his direction. Suddenly, the Duke asked the girl if she liked the food. The little girl answered that she did. Killian immediately noted that she eats as little as other ladies. Elna is already charming, but apparently wants to become even more beautiful. Restful decided to demonstrate how she can actually eat and started stuffing herself with everything. The eldest son immediately said that it was good that she had a great appetite. He really doesn't like it when people exhaust themselves to become slimmer. Then the young man began to pull a fork with meat on it towards her and told her to eat this too, but our heroine thanked him and replied that she was already full. In general, she doesn't eat much. She thought to herself, why is he giving her the remains of his food? Does he really think that the girl will eat scraps? Killian looked at her and wondered why he was trying to make such an indifferent expression on his face. Elena turned her attention to Lexion and noted to herself that she thought he would be uncomfortable having dinner next to his brother. But it was good that he ate with appetite, after which I noticed that he was eating selectively and putting vegetables aside. Therefore, I thought it necessary to say that he will be able to grow only if he eats vegetables too. The man immediately reported that his youngest son does not like them in any form. Our heroine thought to herself that of course it's hard to find a child who would like them, but suddenly, the boy speared broccoli with his fork and grimacing began to chew it. The Duke noted that this was surprising because he did not eat them even when his father and his wife asked him. Fortunately, the baby obeys Elena well, after which he said that it was necessary for them to eat together from the very beginning. They did not have much time left for joint leisure. Our heroine was very surprised because she did not understand what he was talking about at all. Seeing the silent question in her eyes, the Duke explained that with the arrival of spring, Killian and Lexion would go to the academy. In spring meant in 3 months since, in their kingdom, winter is short, so it comes a little earlier. All children at a certain age are admitted to study at the capital's academy. There, they study swordsmanship, martial arts, history, economics, politics, art. There are many areas of study in the educational institution, but there is one that is not taught. Perhaps Elena Resfel could have become a powerful sorceress who would have changed the course of history if she had not fallen in love with Killian. The Duke asked if the girl would also like to enroll in the academy. Our heroine thought to herself that there was nothing there that she wanted to learn. Therefore, she replied that she needed time to think. The man replied that it was fine. Apparently, it was too unexpected for her, but it would not be too late to think about it even when Jane arrived. The little girl thought to herself that she would really come. Would everything really go according to the original plot? The head of the family continued that Oswald is Killian's fiancé, and she will arrive for training in a few days. It would be good if they became friends with each other. Elena smiled and replied that she was waiting with impatience, as she was very interested in what kind of bride her eldest son would have. After some time, the young man caught our heroine in the corridor, after which he pressed her against the wall and said that even if the bride arrives, she will still remain the only one for him. The baby should know about this. Restful frowned and asked angrily what he thought the relationship was like between them at the moment. The boy asked what kind of things this was. She asks because she really doesn't understand, or is pretending. Our heroine began to try to silently push him away from her. Killian took her hair and whispered that Jane was still just a bride. If she wanted, they could be together. Restful looked at him and replied that there could be absolutely nothing between them. Let him not be mistaken. After which she turned around and began to quickly walk to her room. The young man thought to himself that she was very stubborn, and he liked it. Already in her bedroom, Elena muttered that she was simply sick of him. She would never in her life become the lover of this disgusting scoundrel. The next morning, the maids woke the girl up, began to bathe her, and force her to try on different dresses. The girl thought wearily to herself that it wasn't she who needed to be dressed up today, because all the attention today will be focused not on her, but on her eldest son. The official wedding of Killian and Jane will take place in the year of their coming of age. After 3 years have passed, his fiancée, who is the main character of the original novel, will be living in this castle from today on to take lessons as a future wife. However, in the original story, the two never get to marry in the end. The guy kept coming up with excuses, saying that he thought he would need more time to train to become the heir. The young man needed to complete his diploma work at the academy. All this was needed only to gain time and have fun with his mistress. I wonder if she limits any contact with him, will they end up getting married? This cannot be allowed. She really wanted to just tear up the original, but she will help to make sure that this does not happen. When Elena approached the door, she saw a small bouquet lying on the floor. That's why I immediately thought that maybe it was just a coincidence that my eldest son had slipped them in unnoticed. How disgusting that was. But if you think about it, when they were going to lunch, Lexian noticed that there was a daisy lying on her shoulder. The boy then told her that this flower suited the lady very well, after which our heroine took these flowers and attached them to her hair. There was a commotion in the hall on the first floor as everyone prepared to receive the guests. Killian yelled at his younger brother again, saying that he had ordered him not to leave his room and that he should stop looking at him with those eyes. But just as he was about to strike again, Elena grabbed his hand to stop him. The young man immediately tried to justify himself by saying that it was just a simple misunderstanding. Resfel wondered to herself what exactly could have been misunderstood here. The young man continued that he did not intend to beat him, but simply wanted to scare him a little. The girl objected that in fact threats to someone can also be considered violence. Then she turned to Mr. Lexion and asked if everything was okay with him. The baby didn't answer, but simply looked at her silently with tear-stained eyes. Elena did not understand why he did not answer. Perhaps he was worried that because of him, she would end up in a bad situation. Therefore, she said that he should not be afraid and helped him get to his feet, after which she whispered in his ear that, "Thank you for the flowers, she really liked them." Suddenly, the butler's voice was heard announcing that Mrs. Oswald had arrived. It was Jane, the main character, who greeted everyone present. Killian mentally addressed Elena and said that this was just etiquette. Let her not misunderstand it, after all. He should behave with her, as with a bride. After which, he kissed the girl's hand and said that she looked especially beautiful today. Our heroine was panicking inside that Oswald shouldn't fall in love with him because this guy is a real piece of trash. Noticing her behavior, the young man decided that she was simply jealous. Resfel was hysterical that she couldn't stop him, but they somehow needed to be separated. What should she do? Then she approached the guest, greeted her, and introduced herself. Jane replied that she was very pleased to meet you and hoped that they would become friends. Our heroine thought to herself that she was so charming, like an angel descended from heaven. She will definitely protect her and will not allow the main character to be hurt. Sometime later, Killian and Jane were sitting together having tea in the garden. The young man thought that it was impossible for Elena to think something unnecessary when she saw them together. The girl, who was thinking about something of her own, asked for forgiveness and asked again what he had just said. The guy repeated that he asked if she had gotten used to life in Hylos Castle. I would really like her to feel as comfortable in this place as she does at home. He thought to himself that she was, of course, not his type, but quite nice, after which the young man stood up and abruptly put his hand on her face. This came as a surprise to Oswald, so she turned away from him. But she thought to herself that since she was his fiancée, it was probably strange that she was uncomfortable with his gestures. Meanwhile, Elena was looking for Jane and asked the maid if she was in her room. The woman replied that the mistress was now with the master. For several days in a row, our heroine came to her friend's room. But all the time, she heard the same thing, that she was with Killian. Therefore, I noted to myself that not only is he a vile person, but he is also a clingy leech. Something needs to be done urgently, otherwise Jane will fall into this scoundrel's net. Watching them chatting sweetly together, the girl panicked inside that she should never fall in love with this bastard. All this cannot be left just like that. But she has no reason to interfere with them. Maybe if she doesn't stand in their way, like she did in the original, he won't become like this. Suddenly, she saw her younger brother, who whispered and asked what she was doing there. Elena pointed her finger at the gazebo and made it clear that she was on reconnaissance. For some reason, the young man's expression suddenly became sad. Our heroine immediately asked if he was still making fun of him, but the guy replied that he wasn't. After which I thought that maybe if Killian gets on the right path, it won't become like the original. Maybe it's just worth leaving everything as is. After some time, the girls sat together in absolute and awkward silence. Suddenly, they turned sharply and simultaneously to each other to say something, and this made them laugh a lot. Jane decided to speak first and stated that they had not seen each other since she arrived at the estate. Elena noted that indeed she knew how much the girl wanted to meet her. Oswald replied that she had been told that Resfel had been looking for her during the guest's absence from the castle. The bride hopes that they will definitely become friends when they attend classes together. The little one thought to herself that she couldn't believe that she would be friends with the main character of the novel. So this is what she really is like. In the work, Jane was cold and gloomy. Maybe she is like this now because she has not been wounded yet. The girl added that she had spent her entire life in her house, and because of this, she had no friends her age. Therefore, she really wants her and Resfel to become friends. Our heroine replied that she wants this too. Suddenly, a woman entered the room and said that her name was Yuri, and that from today on, she would be their teacher. Almost immediately, a lecture on the history of the empire began, which the teacher told in a very interesting way. She graduated from the Imperial Academy, with honors, is a researcher at the Imperial Research Center, and also won second place in the capital's martial arts competition. All the information is remembered like clockwork. They are very lucky to have such an amazing person teaching them. After some time, the lesson was over, and the woman said that that was enough for today. Our heroine was very sorry that there would only be 3 lessons a week. When the girl was walking down the corridor, she heard an incomprehensible commotion and cries that she didn't want it, and that he should let her go. Around the corner, she saw Killian, who was pressing his bride against the wall, and Jane was trying to resist. Resfel thought to herself that she knew this guy was absolutely incorrigible. Seeing that her friend was extremely frightened, the girl approached them and angrily exclaimed that the gentleman was even allowing himself to do this. He could see that she was against it. The young man was confused and did not know what to say to her in response, so he simply turned around and started to walk away, while Elena thought to herself that she couldn't believe that he had just forced her, although it was clear that she was against it. Had he completely gone crazy or something? Jane had tears in her eyes, and she whispered that the girl could not even imagine how scared she was. Resfel hugged her and thought that she was the main character whom the little girl had once perceived as a friend. After some time, they waited in the room for the maids to bring them warm tea and a handkerchief. Oswald asked for forgiveness and said that she herself did not realize when she started crying. She became afraid because Mr. Killian was behaving too assertively. Our heroine thought to herself that she thought that Hell-OS would behave more gallantly with his bride, or that he decided that he could do whatever he wanted with her. The guest continued that the lady had helped her, and now everything was fine. The girl replied that anyone in her place would have done the same. My friend objected that it was not a fact, but Elena was very confident and impressive. Resfel said that Oswald could be like that too, or rather, should be like that. If someone forces her to do something, you need to tell her that she doesn't like it, even though they are engaged. If it goes beyond what is permitted, you must definitely refuse. The main character collected her thoughts and replied that, okay, she would try her best. After some time, the Duke asked if she had thought about the offer to go to the academy, but the girl replied that she did not want to. The man replied that this was unexpected, because he had heard from the teacher that she kept up with her lessons well and read a lot in general, so he thought that she would want to study at the academy. Elena replied that the thing is that this educational institution does not have anything that she would like to study, because our heroine would like to learn how to use magical abilities. I thought to myself that if she really is Resfel, like in the original, then she should definitely have a predisposition to magic. Unexpectedly, the head of the family replied that it was fine. However, in order for her to study it, it was necessary to bring a real magician here. But the little one should know that they all belonged to the magic tower. Magicians usually do not like ordinary people, and it is not easy to force them to leave. There even the emperor cannot easily force them to do something, perhaps only if he offers fabulous money. The Duke added that in order to find her a magic teacher, they would need so much money that it was hard to imagine. When Elena replied that she knew, the man said that it was okay, then their conversation would be short. If she has magical abilities, then he will sponsor her knowledge as long as she needs it. But if not, then she must understand everything herself. Our heroine thought to herself that if she had no talent, then she would lose support. Perhaps he meant that he would lose her in every sense. But Restful replied that she understood everything the Duke said, that it was fine. Then he would bring the best magician, even if it took some time. Then the girl thought that it probably wouldn't matter to him if she talked about Jane. But Lexion, did she a freeloader? Even have the right to touch on this topic? But still, she collected her thoughts and said that she had something to tell him. She found out about it when she lived in the castle for about a month. It seems that Mr. Killian beats his younger brother. She did not witness the beating itself, but before her eyes the boy swung at Lexion twice. Also, many wounds were found on the little gentleman's body. If a man asks the doctor and his maids about this himself, he will understand everything. Elena also heard Killian bullying his younger brother. It seems to happen more than once, but their father reacted strangely and replied that children usually grow up like that, picking on each other. Therefore, she may not worry too much. Now they are fighting, but over time, she will not notice how they will become the closest. That is what blood relatives mean. But thank you for your concern. After some time, the Duke's eldest son came to him, and the man said that he had heard something funny today. They say that he is making fun of Lexion. The boy thought to himself that he always tried very hard every time. Before meeting his father, he felt fear and anxiety since the man always said that the Hylos family should be the strongest. After the death of his mother, the only thing left in his father's life was the work of the Duke. He threw out everyone who was useless without pity, and what helped him was accepted indiscriminately. The guy was always worried that he would not be recognized. However, the older Lexion became the more attention his brother received from his father. The young man believed that if things continued like this, he would be abandoned. The Duke continued that it was all because of some pathetic jealousy that he was behaving this way. It seemed was caused by the fact that his son was not confident in himself. Then she looked at him with a menacing look and said that there was no need to make noise in his house. Even though the boy is his son, he will not forgive Killian if he dishonors his family's honor. Meanwhile, the friends were chatting pleasantly over a cup of tea in the garden. Then they noticed how sad the young man was, sitting near the flower bed. Jane suggested that he seemed upset that the flowers had wilted. Noticing them, the boy smiled broadly and began to run towards them. Oswald noted that this was the first time she had seen Mr. Lexion with such a happy smile. The boy sat down at the table with them and said that everything looked so appetizing, so he also wanted to have tea with them. Mr. Killian was watching them from the side, and he was very angry about this whole situation. Looking at the friendly faces of the girls, the guy thought to himself that they had never smiled at him like that. But the Duke's words immediately popped into my head about not making unnecessary noise in his house. During tea drinking, Elena noticed that Lexion was looking too intently at Jane. Then the friend said that she heard that Restful was going to learn magic. When our heroine answered that yes, Oswald exclaimed that it was very wonderful that she already knew what she wanted to do in life. Unlike the little girl, she doesn't have anything she wants to do, and the girl even feels like she'll bring disgrace on the Hylos family. Elena replied that it is not at all necessary to know everything and understand exactly what you want. Suddenly, Mr. Lexion stood up from his seat and started to walk away. Restful did not understand what happened. Our heroine went after him and asked where he was going, because the boy hadn't even finished his cake. When the baby turned and glared at her, the girl realized that he was definitely offended, but she didn't understand why. After which, she asked what happened to the gentleman. Perhaps he didn't like something. The young man shouted loudly that he was not Mr. Lexion, but simply Lexion. It dawned on the girl that he wanted her to call him by his name, just like Jane. What a charming boy he was! When she corrected herself and addressed him as she should, the boy whispered thanks to her and called her sister Elena, and after that, he began to run away. Our heroine wondered how it was possible to be so sweet. After some time, the girl asked in the library where the books about magic were. The maid pointed somewhere to the side and said that she could find what she needed there. There were books about the history of magic, the basics of magic, the memoirs of one magician. It turned out that there was not so much material, after which I thought that perhaps this is because magicians do not like ordinary people. Elena was so interested to learn about them and couldn't even imagine that there wasn't a single suitable book. When she went out into the corridor, she met that same magical rabbit from the garden. The spirit of the earth said that he came to her because he missed her very much. Then the maids passed by and said hello. The girl was surprised why they didn't say anything when they saw Rennie. But our heroine immediately remembered that no one except her could see him, after which she muttered that it was interesting why only she could see him. The rabbit replied that of course he could materialize so that others could see him, but he simply didn't need to. On the way, the little girl decided to ask again why he still calls her his mistress. The spirit of the earth replied that when they first met, he was so happy that he completely lost his head, because it is the only one for spirits like him. Before he was born, a long time ago, they had another master, but that person disappeared, and a new one did not appear for a very long time. So the spirits began to weaken, many even died out. New ones were born, but their life was not long. The rabbit almost died too. But now everything is fine, because thanks to his owner, he is alive again. There are not so many living spirits now. But thanks to her, there will be more of them, because her power gives them life. Even just being near her gives a lot of energy. Elena thought to herself that she just wanted to live like a normal magician. But what if she becomes a spirit caster? Is there any way to become one? But there is no way to find out about it because there are no books. The rabbit said that others would also come to see her, and that the spirits had been thinking only about her since the moment of their birth. He was just very lucky to meet her right before he died. After some time, Resfel asked the maid if she was going to continue standing next to her, like that. The girl replied that the magician who was supposed to come today was in theory very handsome. Can Rosie also stay? And if there is a lesson, can she be present? Elena laughed, because when Yuri teaches the lessons, she doesn't even show her nose. At that very second, a handsome white-haired guy appeared in the room. The girl wondered if he was an elf by chance. The young man greeted them and said that his name was Jeremiah. He was a researcher from the Magic Tower. Resful admired that he was not just a magician, but a researcher. The Duke had definitely invested a huge amount of money into this matter. The proud wizards of the tower would not have sent their magician to the estate if the head of the family had paid them less than that. The young man stated that first it was necessary to measure the lady's magical power. When the maid asked what magical power was, Jeremiah replied that it was a special power that not everyone had, and only if one had it could one become a magician. The girl thought to herself that she would be able to take lessons only if she could prove that she had magical energy. But what if she didn't have it? Then the wizard took out from under his cloak a sphere of no small size. Resful was surprised how he could pull something like that out of such a small pocket. The guy explained that this is a ball that measures magical power. Let him try to put his hand on it and release the magic. The little girl started trying, but she didn't understand how to do it correctly, but Rosie supported her in every possible way. Watching this, the young man laughed and said that straining does not mean calling forth magical power. After which, he decided to demonstrate it himself, and said that you need to slowly inhale and exhale in a state of complete peace. Relax your whole body, and then it should work. This ball has the ability to draw out magical power. Once measured, you can then easily begin to control it. This, of course, only works for those whose energy lives inside. When the guy told her to try it now, our heroine concentrated, and a magical glow appeared around her. The girl was a little scared and asked if this was exactly how it should be. Jeremiah replied that she had more magical power than he thought, even much more than an ordinary magician. The maid asked with admiration in her voice how he managed to determine this. The guy explained that the amount of magical power can be understood by the color inside the ball, depending on which one of the colors of the rainbow is shown, and the white color, which is not in it, means that the ball is not able to measure power. After the maid exclaimed that it was simply amazing, Elena asked if it was normal for it to swirl around her like fog. The young man explained that it was all because her magic was still unstable. If she worked hard, the energy would become as clear as his. After which, he asked if she wanted to measure her powers even more accurately in their tower. They would always be glad to have visitors like her. Our heroine thought to herself that this was incredible. She not only had magical power, but it turned out to be much greater than the girl expected. What a relief. The craft of magicians provides a stable life, being one you can be more influential than aristocrats. Even if you are a commoner, you will have to study hard and become the strongest. Sometime later at tea, the Duke said that he had heard that she had enough magical abilities. He thought to himself that thanks to Elena, their family would have a connection with the tower. It would not be easy for even the imperial palace to influence it. Now they would be able to be one step ahead. After which he smiled broadly and said that he would provide her with all kinds of support in her studies of magic. And not only that, she could ask for whatever she wanted. Our heroine was simply happy, so she thanked him with all her heart. In the evening, Elena felt a stomach ache. She had suffered from menstrual pain in her past life, but she didn't believe that she would have to endure it in the novel as well. Perhaps the girl committed some sin in her previous life, for which she is being punished for all this. The maid ran into the bedroom and asked if everything was okay. She would call a doctor here right away. After the examination, the woman handed her a pill and said that it was taken by royalty and young aristocrats when they experienced unbearable pain these days. Our heroine decided not to argue and accept what should help her. After some time, the maid asked if she felt better, but the little girl replied that there was absolutely no effect. When Resful asked if there was anything else, the girl replied that this was the best there are magic painkillers, but they are all the same. Elena thought to herself that it was just hellish pain she wanted them to at least call a magician healer. Was she really the only one in this world who had such serious pain? While the little girl was lying there, thinking about how she wanted to create some kind of magical medicine, she heard the doors open and someone enter her bedroom. It turned out to be Lexion and Jane, who for some reason were both in tears. The girl did not understand why they came at all. She had told the maids not to let anyone in to see her for a couple of days. Looking at the guys, our heroine said that everything was fine with her. There was no need to cry. The young man took her hand and sobbing asked if she was sure she was not dying. Restful laughed and replied that everything would be fine. She just needed to rest for a few days. On the second day, Elena was still in pain, and she was wondering when it would get easier. Suddenly, a rabbit appeared near her, who noted that she was clearly not feeling well. The girl explained that she had menstrual pain. The spirit of the earth asked if she had taken any medicine. Our heroine answered that she had, but it had no effect. The rabbit burst into tears and said that he did not want her to die. But Resfel replied that she was still alive, after which he placed the plant in front of her and said that it was a rabbit flower. Let him try to eat it, because it has pain-relieving properties, so it should help. The spirit warned her just in case that only rabbits eat it, but the girl snatched the flower and said that she could chew even a stone if it would help get rid of the pain. Our heroine began to chew it and think that she just needed to imagine that she was a rabbit and eat it. Literally, immediately, she felt that the pain disappeared. As if by magic, it was simply incredible. When long ears suddenly grew on her head, the animal muttered that sometimes there are side effects. After Rennie exclaimed that she was simply charming, the girl asked what exactly had happened. The rabbit explained that by eating such a flower in rare cases, a person becomes like them. Rabbit ears or tail appear, sometimes you may start jumping like a rabbit. A more common side effect is the appearance of hair on the body. So despite the fact that it is a very good painkiller, no one wants to eat it. Our heroine asked in bewilderment when this effect should disappear. The animal stuttered and replied that in about half a day or even a whole day. After some time, the maid exclaimed that it was so good that she felt better. She was so worried when her mistress lay wrapped in a blanket. Elena thought to herself that she couldn't show her ears, although perhaps she wouldn't have cared at all. Then she asked if the maid was not too happy to see the magic teacher again. The young man greeted the girl and said that today he would teach her to control magical power. A little later, a magical glow appeared in Resfel's hands, which shocked her. Jeremiah noted that it hasn't even been a couple of hours. It seems like she has an innate talent. Maybe she is the only one in the whole wide world. Their supreme mage will be very happy if he sees this. Next time, they definitely need to visit the tower. Elena couldn't believe her luck. Then, she asked if it was possible to learn how to make magical medicines. But she thought to herself that it would be a shame not to use such an effective herb just because of its side effects. For some reason, the young man was surprised by this question and replied that of course he could teach her, but he didn't know that she was interested in it. The fact is that this area is not particularly attractive to magicians these days. Our heroine explained that there is simply one medicine that she wants to take, not even that she wants it, but that it is simply necessary. This is a medicine for girls in simple terms, a pain reliever during the menstrual cycle. The guy asked if there weren't any of these among regular pills, and there should be magical analogs. The girl replied that there were, but they were completely useless, especially for those who had serious pain. Jeremiah muttered that he didn't even know about it, since he had never encountered anything like it. After which, he exclaimed that good they would begin to study magical medicines from the next lesson, and then he would bring the appropriate book. Suddenly, the little girl asked another question, whether he knew anything about spirits. When the magician asked how she knew about them, the lady replied that she had seen one book in the library, and it only mentioned spirits, so she didn't really understand anything. The young man thought to himself that there were no books about these otherworldly creatures. So how did R.E. Svel learn about them? After which, he replied that in fact spirits are forgotten creatures. He is very surprised that the girl knows about them. In every corner of the world, from the magic that spread during the creation of the universe, spirits were born. They appeared having natural elements in them. If the rabbit is the spirit of the earth, then it means that there are spirits of other elements. The guy explained that they carry the magic of the first universe, so it is believed that they contain very great power. However, ordinary people do not even notice their existence, except for the spellcasters who are born once every few hundred years. He himself only knows this. Our heroine replied that it was clear and thanked him for sharing his knowledge. After some time, the maid brought Elena books and said that they were from Mr. Jeremiah. There was a note attached to them saying that he thought it would be better if she reviewed the material beforehand, rather than during the next lesson, so he sent the books. The next day, Resfel went to the Duke's office and asked how he slept. The man replied that everything was fine. He also heard that the girl was going outside the castle today. Our heroine replied that yes, because she wanted to buy ingredients for a magical medicine. The head of the family objected that she could ask her maids about this, so why did she want to go herself? When Elena replied that she wanted to experience the whole process of preparation with her own hands, the Duke exclaimed that she thought straight like a true craftsman, after which he handed her a bag of gold coins and said that she could buy not only the ingredients, but also anything she wanted. The man said that he would support her in everything, so let her take it and not feel obligated. He also already informed the knights, so they will accompany her. The girl exclaimed that this is not at all necessary. The Duke objected that they couldn't allow their precious sorceress to be harmed, but if she was too uncomfortable, then let her take at least 2 with her. The butler asked her to wait a while in the hall while he went for the guards. While she was waiting, Lekshin appeared and asked where his sister was heading, whether by any chance she was going to the market. The maids told him about this, so he also wants to go. The girl answered that it was fine, but they would not be there for long. On the way in the carriage, the boy looked at Elena and thought that she looked just like an adult. Suddenly, the young gentleman turned red, and his heart began to beat faster. Our heroine noticed this and asked if everything was okay with him, if he felt normal. The Duke's youngest son smiled slightly and replied that he was fine, and there was no need to worry. When they arrived at the market square, the knights said that they would accompany them, keeping their distance. The boy immediately asked if they could walk holding hands. Our heroine answered that of course. The girl felt very nervous, perhaps, because she had not been out in public for a long time. Children were running around, and the shouts of sellers could be heard from everywhere, calling out to people in order to better sell their goods. Noticing how Lekshin looked around with delight, Elena thought that all this time he lived only within the walls of his house. It must have been very boring. The boys went and bought themselves a strange blue apple, and Resfel noted that it looked like someone's cheeks were about to burst. Then they heard the vendor shout that they had healthy food for everyone, from cute pets to cows and horses. They were all fresh, just brought in that morning. The girl asked if there was anything else available, as she needed rabbit flowers. The woman replied that of course there was, and asked how many she needed. Our heroine looked at her with a serious expression and declared that she was taking absolutely everything. The seller could not believe her ears, because she thought that all the food would go to waste and would have to be thrown away. How could such happiness have fallen on her? Having pulled out several bags, the woman stated that it seemed they had a lot of rabbits. The young man took one of the flowers and immediately pulled it towards himself to smell it. The merchant immediately snatched it from his hands and exclaimed that it was impossible to eat since it was not for people. On the way, the little boy asked why she had bought so many rabbit flowers since she didn't even have a rabbit. Elena explained that she wanted to create a magic medicine. This ingredient is not currently used in either conventional medicine or magic, but she would like to try using it. When asked if her sister would become a sorceress, the girl replied that she thought she would if she continued to study everything as needed. Some time later, Resfel thought that she only needed to get rid of the side effects of the transformation into a rabbit. There are elixirs that dispel the transformation. Maybe it will work if she uses them. I would like to use the rabbit flowers right away. but everything needs to be done in order, so it is better to practice first. So the first thing she will try to do is prepare a basic magical medicine. After some manipulations, she muttered that the book said it should be a soft pink shade, and this was a failure. But this was only the first attempt. Since she managed to give the elixir such a color, it means that she does have talent. At this time, Lexion and Jane were quietly spying on our heroine, who was extremely focused. The guys didn't even know how many days had passed. They were very bored without Elena. After some time, the girl exclaimed that it worked, because the smell became as described in the book, and the gray tint, which is typical for painkillers. The young man looked at this substance in surprise, and asked if she had finished already. Restful exclaimed that, yes, she took the methods described in the book as a basis, combined the recipe for preparing 2 medicines, and got a new one. Namely, preparing a magical medicine to dispel the transformation and a magical painkiller, although she still doesn't know if the side effect of the rabbit flower has disappeared. The guy noted that it was very commendable that she, taking into account the characteristics of the flower, came up with a way to neutralize the side effects. It is not easy to make even the most basic elixirs, but the girl was able to create something new. Not everyone can do that. He was very lucky with his student. When Elena objected that she had done it, but what if there was no result? The young man replied that there was no need to worry, all this could be easily checked. Let him just remember that there is no success without mistakes. Our heroine was very nervous and said that she had not slept for several nights in a row. Jeremiah reminded that the first pancake can turn out lumpies, after which he added that this is used in the creation of magical medicines. You can find out whether it is useful and whether there are any side effects if you drop the elixir thereof. The little girl looked at these colors with confusion and asked what it all meant. The magician explained that the blue on the left means that the medicine is effective, and the green on the right means that there are no side effects, so no one will become a rabbit after taking this medicine, and the pain will also disappear. The girl was able to create the medicine she wanted. It seems she doesn't need it anymore, but Elena objected that no, it was all only thanks to the books that the teacher had sent her earlier. I thought to myself that, thanks to this, I will now be able to live peacefully during menstruation. I need to thank Rini as well. The young man stated that there was still something very important left. How about distributing it through the tower? It would be responsible for production, distribution, and promotion. Let him put his signature in this place. The terms of the contract will definitely not be bad. Her medicine is still amazing, but it needs to be worked on so that it can be sold as a product. If other tower scientists work on it, the ideal magical painkiller will be born. Our heroine asked whether it means that other people will be able to use it. The young man explained that, of course, not only in their empire, but also in other countries, a lady could become rich in the blink of an eye. Having carefully studied the contract, the girl replied that she agreed to such conditions. The next day, the cook gave our heroine the freshest carrots as she asked, after which the girl went out onto the balcony, and magical energy began to emerge in her hand. This is their signal after meeting a rabbit. This is how she calls him to her. Spirits whose source of power is the magic of the caster can sense it. Elena hasn't met anyone else besides Rennie yet, but according to him, they only need one contact with the caster, after which they can teleport to him. The rabbit said that everyone else would visit her soon, but they were coming from far away, so it would take some time. He shared her power with some spirits who were dying, so she doesn't have to worry. Our heroine thanked him and said that she had a gift for him. Restful doesn't know if spirits eat these, but she chose the one that looked the tastiest. The rabbit was happy that his mistress was giving him carrots, and not just any carrots, but the most delicious ones. Our heroine asked if they could eat such things at all. Rennie exclaimed that of course they could. They all live thanks to her power, but when there is no energy at all, they can feed on this. The plants on this earth contain a little of what they need. The rabbit's eyes filled with tears, and he exclaimed that it was very tasty. The girl told him not to cry, because now she would feed him carrots more often. And anyway, thanks to him, she got rid of menstrual pain and created a cure, so thank you very much. The spirit of the earth replied that she did not need to thank him, because he was much more grateful to her. After some time, Jane, whom they had not seen for a long time, entered Elena's bedroom. A friend greeted her and said that she heard that she signed a contract with a magic tower after developing a medicine, so she should accept her congratulations. Restful noted to herself that the rumors had already spread, most likely. Teacher Jeremiah reported this to Duke Hylos, and he joyfully told everyone who cared. The man must have breathed a sigh of relief that his monetary investment had not been wasted. She thanked her out loud and said that her room was a mess. It would be better to go to the living room and drink tea there. Sitting at the table, Oswald said that while she was doing her business, she was very bored. She repeated the study materials of her mentor Yuri and spent her time reading. She had nothing else to do except that. In fact, she was worried about many things. Elena asked what exactly, but she thought to herself that Killian was really making fun of her. The friend muttered that she was learning magic and had even created an amazing medicine, but compared to her, she couldn't do anything. She had no particular preferences. Therefore, the future bride is very afraid that she will simply disgrace the name of the Hylos family. Restful replied that it is not necessary to know everything and understand exactly what you want from life. She is the only main character for herself, and only she can decide what she wants to do. At the moment, Jane is in the estate of another family, but it is the girl who is the mistress of her own destiny. The friend muttered that as time went on, she became more and more impatient, as if she was marking time. And every day, watching Elena, she developed a desire to become like her, but she doesn't know at all what to do and how. Our heroine replied that such thoughts may arise, but what is important here is not the speed, but what kind of life she sees for herself. Let her try to look for what she wants now. In this way, the girl herself will naturally understand what she is good at and what she loves. Let him try everything in his free time, from lessons, for example. On warm days, he can draw in the garden. Or if you want something more active, you can try working out in the training pavilion. She can even ask the knights to teach her something. Oswald asked, is that really possible, since her father always said that only men can wield a sword? Resfel thought that Jane's father in the original was the exact personification of patriarchal principles and did not allow her to do anything like that. Therefore, I answered that, of course it is possible. They also have 2 legs and arms, so we should try. The girl was very confused and just looked at our heroine in silence. Elena thought to herself that she had most likely shocked her friend by refuting her father's words. But after a pause, Oswald exclaimed that she agreed they too were capable of anything. The girl noted that she hoped that her words would give Jane at least a little self-confidence. After some time, her painkiller called Rose finally went on sale. Thanks to the promotion and systematic distribution of the Magic Tower, the medicine began to be sold not only in their empire, but also in all corners of the continent. The young man with a serious expression on his face told the lady not to be too surprised and to listen to him carefully, after which he exclaimed that they sold everything, and he congratulated her on this. The lady is simply incredible. As soon as they heard the news of this, the tower immediately began to create an additional batch. Her share of the profit will be calculated next month. She can collect it at any time when she visits them, after which he noted that she seemed very surprised. The girl replied that she was, since she did not think that the reaction would be so good. The guy replied that they couldn't help but sell out the medicine in the blink of an eye. The price was low, and the effect was excellent, an affordable price compared to any other painkiller on the market, because girls need this elixir. So he was sure that sales would go well. The maid exclaimed that she thought so too. As for their lesson today, the young man suggests going to the tower. On the way, they met the Duke, and the boys greeted each other. The man explained that he came because he heard about Elena's departure to the Magic Tower, after which he handed her some money and said that it was for pocket expenses. Our heroine noted to herself that he seemed delighted that she could become a sorceress. He even put his work aside and came. Then she thanked him. In the carriage, Restful reflected on the fact that the tower was located in the desert at the border of the empire, and thus did not belong to any country. She has great influence due to her powerful magic, especially the supreme mage of the tower, who can compete for power with the emperor. It is for this reason that wizards are treated with greater respect than the aristocrats of the empire. Walking down a dead-end alley, the girl did not understand why they went there. Then the boys went into some inconspicuous second-hand bookshop. Approaching the shelf, the young man asked to wait a little, since the arrangement of the books changes every time, so it takes time to find the right one. When the young man moved one of the publications, the shelf moved slightly to the side, and a portal appeared, after which the wizard told her to follow him, and took a step straight towards him. Elena was at first confused whether she could go in there, but then she decided that she would find out when she got there. On the other side of Resfel, I saw a tower that was so huge and snow-white. Looking around, she did not notice anything unusual, although she thought that she would see all kinds of magic even at the entrance. Suddenly, Jeremiah appeared next to her and asked how she felt about the surroundings. Elena replied that she didn't know yet. The guy added that it was too early to be disappointed, since it was much more interesting inside. Our heroine asked what kind of blue light had transported them to this place. The magician explained that it was a portal. There are not many of them, as they were created by their supreme mage, using a large amount of magical energy. There are only 2 in the entire empire, and 1 in each of the neighboring kingdoms. But portals cannot be used unless you are a tower mage. The girl asked how she did it then. The guy replied that she had been with him, after which he said that this was the central room, the heart of the entire tower, and the place where the supreme mage lived. While the girl was looking around, a young man on a broom rushed past her, shouting that she needed to be careful because he was in a hurry. Then 2 girls rushed past her, chasing something invisible. The young man said that things were a bit hectic around here, weren't they? Our heroine replied that although her head was spinning, it was still very funny. On the way, the young man said that the reason for their visit to the tower today was very simple. It would be necessary to accurately measure her magical energy. At the same time, he wanted to show her information about the sales of the medicine. Also, if she wishes, it will be possible to register her as an official member of the Magic Tower. Then, the young man added that first it was necessary to take measurements, and then everything else. Elena noted that it was so bustling downstairs, but here it was quiet. The young man explained that the magic of silence was imposed in this place. There are many eccentrics among the magicians, and their leader does not like noise, so she cast this spell. After showing her a huge ball, Jeremiah said that she had already seen it before it was a sphere that measured magical power. The girl noted to herself that yes, but it was tens of times larger than the one she had seen earlier. The guy said that, like last time, let him put his hand on the ball and release his power. As soon as Restful did this, a bright magical council lit up the room. The young man exclaimed that as he had expected, her magical power was simply enormous. It seems that the girl has even more of it than the young man himself. Apparently, Elena will be second in power after the Supreme Mage. Our heroine thought to herself that the original also said that the baby had powers that could change the whole world. Maybe that's why it's like that. Then they came to another door, and the guy said that those who are responsible for Rose are in this room. She can follow the manufacturing process and get acquainted with detailed sales data. Jeremiah will go away for a bit on his own business, and in the meantime, she can look around. According to the teacher, at first, the medicine did not arouse much interest in the tower, since magic elixirs are not their main sources of income. But when the production of the second batch began, having learned about the effectiveness of the drug, many wanted to join the production, even if late, and the team itself was moved to the central tower. The girl couldn't believe that a whole team had been created for her medicine, and then she knocked on the door. A young man immediately appeared and said that they were very busy, so let him speak briefly and to the point. Elena replied that she came to get acquainted with the sales details and to look at the manufacturing processes of Rose. The guy grabbed his head and exclaimed that they were already busy up to their necks with the production of the second batch. From which team did they even send it? Our heroine replied that she is not yet an employee of the tower, but she is the author of Rose, and her name is Elena Resfel. The young man was taken aback and muttered that he had not expected her to come so suddenly. His name is Har V. E. Kantvel. He is the head of the team responsible for this medicine. The guy apologizes very much for his rudeness. The girl replied that it was okay that this could happen to anyone, because he was very busy, but she thought to herself that people become irritable when they have a lot to do. She had been like that in her past life, after which she added that perhaps it was in vain that she came today. But the young man objected that no, the girl is the creator, so she can come whenever she wants. When our heroine entered the room, she was surrounded by a crowd of employees who could not believe their eyes that this was really the author Rose. People were amazed that this medicine was a real revolution. How did she even come up with such a brilliant idea? Meanwhile, a young man came to the Supreme Magician to tell him some news. The girl irritably asked why he was knocking at all. Let him come in. The young man reported that Lady Elena was visiting the tower today. The woman replied that she knew, and what next? The guy immediately said that they had taken an accurate measurement of her strength. She had tremendous magic, and she also had the ability of a spirit caster. The leader asked if he was sure about this. Jeremiah replied that more than that, they tested it with a ball created specifically by Mrs. Karen. He was overcome with anxiety as soon as he saw Elna's spiritcaster powers. They are born only once every few generations. With such power, she can rival the abilities of the supreme mage. The young man would not like to see the death of a young girl, since the caster controlling many spirits shares his life energy with them, and this is the price. The girl replied that she understood him perfectly well, because she was his protege, which is why he valued Elena so much. But right now, they couldn't influence anything. The young man objected that the lady knew a lot about spiritists. Karen replied that she knew, and so well, that there was no one in the world who knew more. Let him bring this little girl to her. Meanwhile, the young man was saying that everyone wanted to meet the author of the medicine. It makes your head spin, doesn't it? Elena replied that she was simply surprised. The guy exclaimed that of course they wanted to see her. The sphere of magical medicines was fading away step by step, but then a talent like her appeared. There is a lot of noise now because everyone wants to create several drugs with her. It never occurred to anyone that an elixir could be created from such a common ingredient as rabbit flour. After which, he exclaimed that he had completely forgotten that she had said that she wanted to look at the sales records of Rose. As soon as the girl replied that she heard that everything was sold out and she was interested in taking a look, magical energy appeared in Hari's hands. A moment later, a sales report appeared in our heroine's hands, and the guy added that she could look at the data carefully and ask questions if she was interested in anything. Resfel was shocked by this information. Does this really mean that she is now terribly rich? Of course, it is inferior to the income of the Duke of Halos's family, but she has definitely become rich. Jeremiah appeared in the room and asked how she was doing. The girl replied that she had been shown the sales book. Now all that was left was to see the manufacturing process, and the young man muttered thoughtfully, what should he do now since the Supreme Mage had expressed a desire to meet with her? When they went up to the office of the head of the magicians, our heroine noted to herself that she was incredibly beautiful. The woman said that she was the owner of this tower, and her name was Karen, after which she clarified whether she had created Rose. When a woman commented that Elna was a cutie and why she was so worried, she replied that it was because Karen was very beautiful. The Supreme Mage asked her to come closer and say that she was not deprived of her external data either, after which she asked if the girl wanted to work in the tower. The little girl answered without hesitation that she did. But there was one thing: if she left the castle, what would happen to Lexion and Jane? If the girl, the only obstacle, disappears, Killian and his bride can marry as planned, and if their marriage is successful, the boy will definitely inherit the title of Duke. Therefore, she answered that she could not stay in the tower for now. But she thought to herself that it would not be too late to come here after she dealt with her older brother. Karen approached her and said that she was so young, but it seemed that she had a lot of worries. The woman did not know what kind of life the girl had lived, but it did not seem that her current age matched her appearance. But there is no need to worry. She is not interested in other people's secrets. She is also different from what is visible from the outside. You can't say that she is 400 years old. Let him do as he wishes. Not all the employees of the tower want to be in it. Everyone lives where he wants, and after some time returns so that she can come again whenever she wants. After which, the Supreme Mage asked to come closer to her and take her hand. A huge magical power is hidden within her, and from now on, the girl is the sorceress of the magic tower. If she has any difficulties or just wants to see you, her doors are always open for her. Our heroine smiled and thanked the Supreme Mage with all her heart. After the young man walked our heroine home, he returned to Karen to talk. The woman said that when she initiated her into their ranks, she lightly passed her magic through Elena's body. Everything is as he said. She has the powers of a spirit caster, and very powerful ones. The baby is incredibly strong, and the amount of magic in her and the power of the caster itself, she is still inferior to her, but after some time, she can surpass her. First, it is necessary to strengthen her magic. This will help her to hold out at least a little longer. It is safe to say that her powers as a spellcaster have blossomed quite recently. There is no need to worry for a while. At least a few years must pass before cracks begin to appear in her soul. After some time, our heroine lay in her bed and thought about becoming a sorceress in a magic tower. It must be just a dream, because such happiness makes me feel uneasy. Then I came to my senses and decided that there was no need to think negatively. It was better to enjoy the present. Suddenly, Lexian entered her bedroom, saying that he heard that she had visited the tower today. The girl replied that yes, she was officially included in the list of tower mages, but she was not going to leave this place right now. The boy became sad and replied that he had simply dropped in to say hello, and having learned that she had already returned, he wished her good night and left. The maid asked where the little gentleman had just gone. The boy answered that he had gone to his sister Elena. The girl asked why he had such a sour expression on his face. The baby did not answer, but simply went to bed, and the maid wished him good dreams. Leaving the room, Sophie wondered if she and the lady had had a fight. Lexian thought to himself that his sister had officially received the status of a tower mage. He was glad, but he didn't like it. The boy was happy, but somehow sad. What if the girl goes far away from the estate? He wants to ask her not to leave, but he doesn't want her to hate him. Walking down the corridor, Jane accidentally bumped into Killian, who asked where she was going in such a hurry. When the young man grabbed her hand, the girl felt a little uneasy, but replied that she was going to go draw with Elena. The guy's expression changed, and he stated that it seemed like they had become very close friends, after which he again pressed her against the wall and said that it would be better if she were even closer to him since they were engaged. Oswald immediately began to remember what her friend had told her, that if someone forces her to do something against her will, then she should be able to express disagreement. Even if they are engaged, this does not mean that she should agree with everything. Let her refuse if it is something unacceptable. Therefore, she replied that she would like to become friends with him too, but not in this way. From now on, let Hylos not allow herself to do anything extra because she does not like it. Then she took the necklace in her hands and said that it was a magical self-defense item. As soon as she thought that she was in a dangerous situation or decided to use it, it would activate. If the young man continues to behave in this way, she will definitely take advantage of him. Then she went on about her business, and the young man remained standing in place, bewildered. When Jane suddenly tripped and fell near the gazebo, Elena asked what was wrong with her, if everything was okay. The friend smiled and replied that she did as she had advised her a little earlier. Our heroine couldn't believe that she was able to reject Killian with the necklace she gave her. But there is one thing the eldest son considers Jane and Lexian weak. She initially spoke out against him, so this does not apply to her. Given his character, he uses such force on those he considers to be his inferior, so it is unknown where he might end up. It is necessary to plan everything before she goes to the tower, namely to make a plan for his elimination. We must try hard to show everyone what kind of person he really is, so that no one can doubt his vileness. But what can be done to eliminate this heir of Killian? The little girl imagined in her head how she would come to the Duke and say that the young master was not worthy of being his heir because he was behaving like a real scoundrel. The man angrily asks if she really thinks she has the right to say something like that. And more importantly, where is the evidence that his son has no right to become the head? The girl thought that indeed, in her past life, she could at least record evidence on video or a voice recorder. Then it dawned on her that she could contact her teacher from the magic tower. The young man muttered that he didn't know she would be interested in the recording device. Holding the ball in her hand, the little girl thought about how huge it was, and that she couldn't show everyone that she was trying to write something down. If you stick a sphere in Killian's face and ask her to do something nasty, the guy will think she's completely crazy. It's good that Elena remembered about the video recording in search of evidence, but she won't be able to do anything secretly with it. When Resfel asked if there was anything smaller, the guy replied that it was usually used for decoration, so everything was about this size, after which he asked if she wanted to make one herself. Since she was able to create a cure, she will definitely be able to make a magic item. Our heroine noted that she should succeed and exclaimed that she would definitely try. After some time, the girl dressed up in a beautiful dress, and the maids exclaimed that she was simply beautiful. Elena thought to herself that Duke Halos had to arrange a reception in honor of the victory right now. Today, a man has to introduce her to society, and she doesn't really like being the center of attention. She immediately had a picture in her head of how the Duke would explain to everyone that he had decided to support the daughter of his noble savior. But it turned out that she was a capable sorceress. If you don't listen too closely, you might think he's just bragging about her. The Hylos ducal family has close ties to the tower. In other words, it is now not easy for even the imperial family to influence it. But in general, the imperial court has no reason to touch this family without her. If our heroine wants to remove Killian, then she needs to win over the Duke. On the way, she was met by Jane, who exclaimed that she was so beautiful, as if a rose had turned into a person, after which she added that this was her first appointment, and she was very nervous. Elena replied that she was also shaking all over it, just didn't look like she was nervous. Lexian met them downstairs, and the girl said that he looked absolutely wonderful today. The boy became very embarrassed, blushed, and replied that his sister was also very beautiful. After some time, the boys walked together to the castle and thought that everything around was very beautiful. It was very interesting what was inside. Suddenly, they began to hear shouts that this was the half-family of Helios. Elena thought to herself that she didn't want to make any unnecessary noise on the day of the appointment. The boys did not calm down and shouted that the half-brother really thought that he could become the heir if he dressed up well. Our heroine could not resist and approached them saying that it was nice to meet you. The young man replied that it was the same. Apparently, she is the one who is under the Duke's care. Their names are Seville Kelton and Jason Houghton. Hearing the names, the girl noted to herself that this was the same little thing that was always next to Killian in the original novel. They were the same vile people as he was secondary characters who constantly changed women and also groveled before those who were stronger, offending the weak. The guys made fun of Jane, who, having abandoned Killian, chose the main character. Therefore, her face changed, and she said that she had just accidentally overheard their conversation, which had a very strange content. It couldn't have happened that two young men from honorable families gossiped about someone who was here and could hear everything perfectly well. Maybe it just seemed that way to her, right? Jason asked what she meant by that. Did she really come to quarrel because of that half-hearted one? Seville added that perhaps she thinks that since the Duke is looking after her, she is someone has she really decided that she has become an aristocrat. Elena still remains a pathetic commoner. The girl replied that he was so limited, even though Risfel was a commoner, as the guy said he was still from an aristocratic family. But Lexion, by the way, is the son of a duke, and he is only the son of a count. His family is lower in status than the Helios family. How can he swear at the little gentleman? They are both still too young, and no one will punish them. But what would happen if they were adults? It would be an insult to a member of the ducal family. The young man shouted, "Who is she to teach him? Can she take responsibility for what she said, no matter what support the girl received from the Duke? Does she really think that she can live peacefully if she makes an enemy for herself in the Kelton family?" Our heroine replied that it seemed that he still hadn't heard what was being said about her, so he considered her just a pupil of Halos. Of course, the baby is really under his care. But along with this, she is a sorceress, or to be more precise, an official member of the Magic Tower. He should know that inside the tower, everyone is closely connected to each other. Therefore, she can consider, as he told her, that he was going to turn all the wizards against him, whether the guy will be able to cope with this. The boys started to run away quickly, saying that she would still answer for this. Elena sighed heavily and thought to herself that aristocrats, young and old, were all absolutely the same. Jane exclaimed that it was cool, but the boy muttered that it was okay to ignore it because of him. What if she got into trouble now? The girl asked him not to worry, because she hadn't done anything for which she couldn't answer later. And besides, they wouldn't harm her in any way. Lexion was upset that he couldn't do anything again, and she had to take the rap for him. When they entered the hall, the Duke began to introduce the girl he was looking after, and to say that she had recently become the sorceress of the tower. Everyone present admired how beautiful she was. They had only heard about her, and it was a great honor to meet her in person. The boy thought that he also wanted to help Elena, but at the moment, his most important desire was to grow up quickly. After some time, the little gentleman ran into our heroine's room, took her to the window, and showed her that it was snowing outside. The boys immediately went for a walk, and Lexion said that they say that if you make a wish on the first snow, it will definitely come true. Therefore, let him concentrate as he did, and wish for what he wants most in the world. As a result, the girl wished that she, the younger gentleman, and Jane would be happy, and the boy wished that he would quickly become an adult and protect Resfelsi. In the evening in her bedroom, our heroine thought about how quickly time flies. The brothers should soon leave for the academy, and the Duke will also have more work to do after the winter. It seems they said that in an educational institution, holidays only happen in winter. Of course, it will be easier for her if she doesn't see Killian, but she really doesn't want to say goodbye to Lexion. For the rest of the time, Elena was immersed in developing the recording artifact, but still could not complete even half of it. but still made progress. Still, she found time to have tea with the little gentleman, and Jane made a snowman, played snowballs, and generally spent her last minutes with Lexion. The maid asked what dress she would like to wear for the younger Halos's birthday. Resfel was thinking about what to give her child for his 10th birthday, since he already has everything, so it would be better to give him what would be most useful for him. The kid unpacked it and saw that there were various books on history, geography, military art, and thanked her. Elena replied that she was very glad that he liked it. The boy once again said a huge thank you to his little sister and added that he would cherish them like the apple of his eye. After drinking the medicine before going to bed, the girl thought she couldn't stand it. It was very hard because of the pain, but it's good that there is Rose. Suddenly, the spirit of the earth appeared, exclaiming that he missed his mistress very much. Our heroine began to get nervous that she didn't have any carrots. Now she would quickly go and get some, but the rabbit replied that it wasn't necessary. In fact, he came to her in order to introduce her to the other guys, after which a small blue turtle appeared in the room, smiling sweetly. The rabbit exclaimed why Toto was taking so long. He replied that it was because he was slow. Then he crawled closer to our heroine, introduced himself, and said that he was the spirit of water. Thanks to its owner, the turtle is full of strength again and is very grateful to her for this. The guys told her that if she needed anything, she should call them at any moment. But the girl thought to herself that it was very quiet and calm now. Does this mean that if Elena wants, she can use the power of earth and water? She doesn't need it yet, but she might need it in the future because she doesn't know what might happen when she leaves the Duke's castle. After some time, the man greeted the guests who came to the birthday of his second son and thanked them for sharing with them the joy of this event. The elder gentleman watched all this from the sidelines and was very angry. Various memories arose in his head. Father said that Lexion grasps everything on the fly and learns faster than his peers. But it's not just about the speed of learning. The boy learns the materials well and applies them perfectly in practice. Apparently both sons took after him since they are so smart. The teacher exclaimed that it was a great honor for him to teach such a capable young man as he. The eldest is a smart guy too, but Lexion will make his family shine like no other. Elena said that the heir of the Duke of Hylos calls his brother this and now resorts to violence. Jane stated that from now on, he should not allow himself anything unnecessary and should not behave in such a way. All this was supposed to belong to the young man, not the younger brother. But his father told him in a threatening tone that there was no need to raise useless noise in his house. After the Duke was asked if Mr. Killian was his heir, the man replied that nothing had been decided yet, and the boy simply began to leave the room in silence. If only this little boy had not been there, everything could have been different. Meanwhile, our heroine wandered among the guests and looked for her friend who had disappeared somewheres. Then she saw that the girl was talking to Savel Kelton and Jason Houghton, and immediately thought that the guys had first pestered her, and now they had switched to Jane. After which she approached them and exclaimed that it was so unexpected that they met again. Then she smiled and asked if they were adults. The guys answered that the ceremony had just recently taken place. Elena replied that it was a pity, but according to the law of their empire, relations between adults and minors were prohibited, but they themselves should understand. When our heroine took Oswald away from these young men, she thanked her and noted that it turned out that she was still very far from her. Resfel countered that she had started trying to get away from them before the girl even arrived, and Killian had refused too, so she was doing just fine. After which she wondered where the birthday boy had gone, and began to look for him in the crowd, after which she saw that he was heading somewhere. It seemed strange to her that the elder brother was heading in the same direction as the little gentleman. At this time, the young man took a glass of champagne and was about to pour it on his brother's head, saying that people like him should not exist on Earth. But suddenly, Elna materialized in front of him, and it turned out that all the liquid was poured on her, after which the girl stated that he was simply disgusting. Her friend immediately ran up to her and started asking if everything was okay with her. Our heroine replied that everything was fine. The father appeared next, first exclaiming why it was so noisy, but then adding that it seemed his son had forgotten what he had told him. After which, he approached Resfel, put his jacket on her, and told Jane to take the girl to her room. On the way, Oswald said that it was just amazing. She took the hit, protecting Lexion. Our heroine replied that she did it because he was too young, and she felt sorry for him. The friend replied that Elena still did not tolerate injustice, By the way, she did not know that Mr. Killian was such a person. The guy seemed pushy and cruel to her, but she didn't think it was that bad. When they got to the door, the girl told Jane to go back into the hall. Nothing terrible had happened. They had just poured champagne on her. When Oswald tried to object that Resfel would be left completely alone, our heroine replied that everything was indeed fine and that she actually wanted to be alone. After some time, a little gentleman appeared in her bedroom who was all in tears. When asked what happened, the boy replied that his sister suffered because of him, so why does she do this every time? Our heroine objected that she could not allow him to be bullied again. No one should suffer at all. The baby began to cry even more and say that he was simply too small and could not yet stand up for himself and for her. Lexian thought to himself that he wanted to grow up quickly. Elena always saves him in difficult situations, and she was even doused with champagne because of him. He is small and weak, so he can't do anything. He is disgusted with himself. The boy wants to grow up quickly, become bigger than his brother, and defeat him, and he also really wants to protect his little sister. This was his only wish. He would like that. What he wished for in the first snow to come true. At least one day, Faster be more mature. He will be able to become a support for Resfel. Meanwhile, the father told Killian that he dared to disobey him, and the boy asked for forgiveness for this. Is it really so hard not to create unnecessary problems? Why did he do it at all? Has envy taken hold of him so much that now he does not even adhere to his instructions? The young man asked for forgiveness and said that he was wrong and would not do it again. Let the Duke give him one more last chance. This will not happen again in the future. The father thought to himself that no matter how stupid he was still his son, so he replied that this was the last time he would not have another chance. Let him know that. The next day, the butler reported that the Duke was looking for our heroine. Standing near his door, the girl wondered why he suddenly needed her and why he was so worried. But having collected her thoughts, she nevertheless came in to him and said hello. The man noted that it seemed that she felt better. The girl replied that everything was fine and thanked him for not leaving the situation unattended. The Duke added that yesterday he called Killian and spoke with him. Such incidents will not happen again, and if this happens, then let him immediately inform him. He also heard from Jeremiah that the little one was not only a talented sorceress, but also capable of developing medicines and magical artifacts. It is very interesting to see what will become of her. The teachers constantly praise her, and every time he hears about her, he wants more and more for her to be his own daughter. When Elena said thank you and added that it was all thanks to him, the man laughed and replied that he had only supported her in her endeavors, and the baby had done the rest herself. Also in the future, if she needs anything, then let her definitely tell him. Walking down the corridor to her room, our heroine met Killian and asked him why he had come at all. Quite unexpectedly, the young man bowed and asked her forgiveness. The guy came to say this. He is very ashamed of yesterday's incident. He really didn't do it on purpose. Elena replied that she forgives him, but to herself, she thought that only on the outside, after which she added that there was no need to apologize only to her because there was another person who suffered at his hands, and he didn't even have to name them. After some time, the maid informed Lexion that Mistress Elena had come to see him, but when he went out into the corridor, he saw not only her, but also his older brother. The girl immediately began to reassure him that everything was fine. There was no need to be afraid because she was nearby. The young man felt very awkward and could only squeeze out one word. Forgive me. Our heroine was indignant to herself that this could not be called an apology, then said that it seemed they had agreed that he would do everything as Resfel said, or perhaps her memory was failing her. The young man bowed and asked for forgiveness for having mocked him all this time. Let him forgive his wayward brother. The little gentleman replied that he accepted his apology, but could not forgive. Elena thought to herself that she didn't expect him to forgive her either, although it was already difficult to accept this apology. After a while, the maid handed the flower to our heroine and said that it was left for her, whoever it was. Apparently, he really likes hers. For several days after the holiday every morning, someone leaves her one rose, probably Lexiand, while handing the flower to the maid to dry. The little girl thought to herself that she didn't want to leave. Just like that, she needed to give something to the boy before leaving. So I came to Jeremiah and asked what a magic stone is. The guy explained that it is created with the help of cleansing magic. The area of its application depends on the wishes of the magician. They are disposable, but they can be used to start a fire or make it rain. After which he asked if she was in the final stage of producing the recording artifact, and if she wanted to create a magic stone in parallel with it. Elena replied that she does not need fire or rain. She would like that with the help of this stone. The person who gets it in case of danger would be surrounded by a protective barrier. Is this possible? The young man replied that it was possible. Then they would dedicate today's lesson to the creation of a magic stone. First, they needed to design a magic device by concentrating magic. The young man noted that she had only just begun, but the shape already resembled a ball. The girl muttered that it seemed that not everything was so good. But in any case, thank you. During the next step, you need to pour the magic that creates the shield into this device. Our heroine tried to do this many times, but everything ended in failure, after which I began to wonder whether it would be possible to do this at all. The guy answered that of course. Let her not worry so much, she is doing well. Now she copes much faster than other magicians. Let them try again, and everything will work out. The little girl thought to herself that this was not just anyone speaking, but the researcher mage from the tower, so everything should work out. A few days later, our heroine managed to form what she had worked so hard to create, and she would be able to give the pendant to Lexion before he left for the academy. The next day, the girl ran into the boy in the hallway and said that she was just on her way to see him. Elena noted to herself that he was so sweet that just a little bit more, and she would have told him not to go to the academy, but to live with her forever. Then she handed him the pendant and said that it was a gift she had made for him. The stone would build a barrier around him if he wanted to use it. When Lexion exclaimed that she really did it herself, Restful replied that yes, she thought to herself that she really did it for several days and nights on end. The kid noted that the stone was the same color as her hair. She replied that it was because it contained her magic. The little gentleman replied that he liked it very much. It felt as if she was in a pendant. Then the boy kissed her on the cheek and thanked her with all his heart. While our heroine was at a loss, he quickly ran away. Elena laughed and thought to herself that how could a person be so charming? Suddenly, Killian's voice was heard, noting that he had finally found her. Our heroine didn't understand why he was dressed like that and asked if the guy was going somewhere. The young man asked if he could talk to the girl. I thought to myself that at first glance, I understood that I wanted to get Elena. That stern look directed at him, that cold manner of speech still couldn't stop his desire. She kept growing and growing, so the young man decided to finally confess his feelings. Everyone was wondering who leaves roses in front of the ladies' room every day. She treasures them and keeps them. After some time, Restful asked what he wanted to talk about since he brought her into the garden. The young man collected his thoughts and asked her to enter into a relationship with him. Elena thought to herself that he had really gone crazy had she given him any reason. After all, she had clearly explained that she didn't like Killian. A rabbit with a magic sphere for recording conversations appeared just in time. The girl had previously explained to him that it was necessary to monitor every action of the young man. When our heroine answered that she didn't want to, the guy exclaimed in surprise, asking why. Restful wondered if he was asking because he genuinely didn't know the reason, or because he was being impudent and would get what he deserved from her. So she smiled sweetly and replied that the gentleman was not her type. She liked his younger brother. Killian asked in shock, what? How was it his brother weren't their feelings mutual? The girl thought that maybe he had completely lost his mind, that she could even like him. When the guy added that she forgave all his mistakes, kept all the roses that he sent, it dawned on Elena that the flowers were from him. If she had known, she would never have accepted them. She answered out loud that she didn't know that they were from him, since she thought that they were from Jane or Lexion. Plus, she has no intention of having any relationship with someone who is engaged. The guy objected that the engagement could be called off, but the girl replied that she still didn't want to's. After these words, the young man became very angry and began to walk away. The little girl noted to herself that he was a real psycho and thought that she needed to check if everything was recorded. After some time, she thanked the rabbit for the excellent video recording, but she didn't know what to do with it next, since it was too little to demonstrate to the Duke. After which, she asked Rennie if he could do her one more favor. The spirit of the earth replied that of course he needed to follow that stupid boy again. Our heroine nodded and thought to herself that maybe she wouldn't be lucky and wouldn't be able to capture the right moment, but there was still time. The next day, a happy Lexion burst into her room and ran towards her with some document. It turned out to be an engagement contract between Lexion Halos and Elena Resfel. The boy then solemnly handed her a pen and told her to sign her name at the bottom. The girl decided that he wanted to play family, because if you think about it, they often played like that with Jane, after which she put her signature, and the little gentleman began to bow to her and thank her. When the boy immediately started to leave, our heroine did not understand what it was, because she thought that he would offer to play some more. Time flew by very quickly in a few days. Lexian had to leave for the academy. The boy said that he was very sorry that now he would only see his sister on vacation. When our heroine replied that it would be very sad without him, Killian appeared and asked if he could join. The young man was always jealous when they spent time like this. He was very interested in what it was like to sit next to two such beautiful creatures. Then he asked why they both liked his younger brother so much. Elena replied that he was very kind. The guy objected that he was the same and much better. The girl asked her not to make fun of her and asked what kindness she was talking about. Killian is so kind that even his lordship apologized for his upbringing. The guy frowned and asked her to choose her words more carefully. Our heroine replied that she was the very essence of caution. Why is she doing this to him? We had such a nice tea party and Elena is ruining everything. Resfel objected that it was nice. Until the gentleman came here, it is he who is muddying the waters. The young man banged his fists on the table and exclaimed, "Did she say everything?" The girl asked, was it unpleasant for him to hear something like that, or what? The guy replied that it would be difficult for him to control himself if she continued in the same spirit, even for her. It was unforgivable to behave like that. Our heroine replied that she was telling the truth. There were two people here who had suffered from him. Doesn't he find the behavior of the offender unacceptable when he comes and laughs as if nothing happened? What he did with these two, Elena saw with her own eyes. The only thing the gentleman knows how to do is to boast of his position. Killian lost his temper, jumped up from the table, and swung his hand at our heroine, screaming, "How dare she do that?" The younger brother arrived in time, covered the girl with himself, and suffered instead of her receiving a blow to the cheek. The young gentleman shouted at him to stop immediately and step aside. But the boy replied that he was not going to go anywhere, and that he should not even think of offending his sister. Halos became even more angry and swung his arm to deliver another blow. Our heroine was tired of this behavior, so she decided to stop it with the help of her magical abilities. The young man screamed loudly and tried to cover his face with his hands, but it did not help. When the girl stopped influencing him with magic, the guy began to ask for help as he was in a lot of pain. Our heroine wondered what she should do, since she didn't want to help at all. After which she said how he could ask for help from a person whom he had just wanted to hit, and more than once. The young man always treated Lexion exactly as it would be to be in his place. And although no, compared to the boy, this is complete nonsense. As for him, the idea of suffering a little more. Killian began to beg for mercy and said that he was absolutely wrong. Elena replied that he had the wrong addressee. It was not she who needed to beg, but the one who was constantly suffering because of him. Suddenly, the boy touched her and said that she shouldn't get her hands dirty on him. Resfel thought to herself that because he decided to cover her up, he now had bruises on his face. She wouldn't just let it go. After some time, our heroine demonstrated to the Duke the behavior of his eldest son. The girl explained that she received this device when she visited the magic tower. She found it very interesting, so she carried it with her. And in the end, it turned out that this was recorded. The man replied that it was now clear what Killian was doing. He was very ashamed in front of Elena. She had suffered because her father had failed to raise his son properly. A huge thank you to her for taking care of Lexion and protecting him, and he will solve this problem on his own. Resfel thanked him. After some time, the boy showed his father his bandaged hand and said that it was that girl who hurt it. She wanted to kill him. The man asked menacingly if he had decided to make a fuss over some minor injury. When the young man tried to object that she really wanted to harm him, his father ordered him to shut his mouth. It was he himself who raised his hand against her after he shamelessly proposed extramarital relations, despite the fact that he had a fiancée. And the Duke also told him not to make a fuss. Wasn't it? He who was constantly creating problems by beating his younger brother. Did he really think he was worthy of being the heir? The eldest son seems to be mocking the Halos family by doing this. All this time, the man tolerated him because he is his son, his blood. But from this moment on, Killian will no longer be the heir of this dynasty. Guards immediately appeared in the room, grabbed the guy, and began to drag him out of the room. He He tried to justify himself and shouted that he was wrong. Let the father give him at least one more chance. But the man replied that he would not leave him without means of subsistence, but now let him not even think about appearing in this house. Meanwhile, our heroine watched from the window as the young man was driven out of the estate. The girl thought to herself that from now on, no one would make fun of Jane and Lexion anymore. Once outside the gate, the young man had very mixed feelings, and he hissed that he would not leave this so easily. After Killian was thrown out of the house, there was no longer any reason for Jane, who was his fiancée, to live in the house. Before leaving, the girl asked for forgiveness for leaving Elena alone. She might get very lonely when the little gentleman also leaves for the academy. Resfel thought to herself that during this time, she had changed a lot, making decisions on her own and doing what she wanted. Thus, just recently, Oswald had found a business that she wanted to do. When our heroine wished her happiness, her friend replied that she also wanted everything to be good for her because she is the kindest and most amazing, after which she asked whether they would remain friends. Despite the distance, Elena answered that of course, because they could write to each other. Then they hugged each other tightly, and Jane whispered in her ear that she should be happy wherever she was. Not even a couple of days had passed since her departure, and Lexion also had to leave for the academy. The girl told him to be careful and study hard. Our heroine didn't understand what to do next. She shook the plot while having achieved the expulsion of Killian. Jane will live finding her happiness, and Lexion, having escaped from the shadow of her older brother, will be able to live in peace. Everyone will be able to live happily, freed from the shackles of the original. But why did she have such a feeling of regret in her soul? After some time, the Duke said that she was now the only one left in the estate, and she would have to spend time alone, whether this suited her. The girl replied that she was actually thinking about going to the magic tower. The man muttered that then he would have to prepare for her departure as well, after which he asked if she would like to become his adopted daughter. Our heroine was very confused by such a question, so she just looked at him with her mouth open. The Duke continued that it would be simply wonderful if such a gifted child as she became his daughter. He would be glad to accept her as an official member of the Hylos family. Elena muttered that unfortunately, this would be very difficult. The man replied that in that case, if it is difficult to be a daughter, then what about a daughter-in-law? They are close to Lexion, and in aristocratic families, they often enter into marriages of convenience from an early age. The prospect of calling the Duke her father and the boy her husband somehow did not please her at all. When the girl tried to object that this was also somehow not very good, the man asked why his son was like him, so he would achieve a lot in the future. Also, becoming a daughter-in-law of the Hylos family means that all the wealth of their dynasty will fall into her hands. Our heroine replied that she would probably refuse, but she thought to herself that he was just a little boy that she wanted to coddle. The Duke was upset and replied that since she herself did not want it, then okay, but still let her know if she suddenly changed her mind. But in any case, he would like to continue to take care of her until she comes of age. Her opinion, of course, has the highest priority. The man hopes that this place has become a home to which she can always return. Elena replied that yes, she would remain in this estate until she came of age. 2 years later, our heroine thought that she had to finish everything before winter came. She is a real tower sorceress who puts off everything until the last minute. Immediately after the research related to drugs comes practice, and she rested too much in the winter. At that time, she was having fun with Lexion, who had returned for winter break, so she did not study or do magic at all. The maid constantly had to justify herself to the teachers and come up with excuses as to where their mistress had gone. Suddenly, the voice of the little gentleman was heard, who stated that they had not seen their sister for a long time and asked what she was doing. The girl replied that she had filmed a video for him, but that there was no need for that now, after which she asked how he ended up there since it was summer now. Just don't say that he was expelled from the academy or that he dropped out of it himself. The young man replied that he had come because he had some business to attend to. The boy came to his father and asked if he had the right to become the heir. The man replied that of course his blood also flows in his youngest son. If the baby demonstrates that he is worthy of this title, then he will assign it to them. Sometime later at dinner, Lexion said that he would like to go to war this time. Elena was taken aback, that if he really does go there, it will happen even faster than in the original. The man noted that she seemed very surprised, but there was no need to worry. He was 11 years old when he first went to war. The people in their family were very strong. Lection also said that there is no need to worry so much, because it is a mere trifle. Literally the next day, they were already seeing the boy off and wishing him good luck. The girl asked why all this was happening so hastily, why he had decided to do something like this without even consulting. The young man replied that he simply wanted to become an adult as soon as possible. Elena wondered if this had happened because she had changed the plot. The baby asked her for forgiveness for not being able to be there on her birthday, so he would congratulate her as soon as he returned. The girl handed him the pendant and said that she had been making it for several days in a row, and that it would be able to protect him in the war, even if only once. Lection put it on his neck and said that this was enough, thank her very much. After which, he added that it was time for him to set out on his journey and kissed her hand. Restful said that he should return unharmed. Elena watched him go and thought that just as she couldn't change the fact that the guy had gone to war, his return in good health would also remain unchanged. After a long period of time, the young man stood on the monster he had defeated. The knights reported that they had eliminated absolutely everyone and had won the victory. The young man muttered that he would finally be able to see his sister because it was time to go back. There comes a day in everyone's life when from the moment they wake up, absolutely everything goes wrong. First, our heroine fell out of bed, then hit her head on the shelf and spilled water. Absolutely everything was not just in complete disarray, but it seemed as if trouble surrounded us from all sides. All the experiments that she had been continuously conducting for 3 months were lost. Someone destroyed everything, and with the most evil intentions. Jane asked who the criminal was. Elena answered that it was obvious she was constantly talking about him. The girl asked if it was really the one who was always arguing with her. This young man is like a jack of all trades, like an eyesore. The young man kept pestering her with the words, "Is it really possible that someone became a Tower scholar after just one success?" He can't believe that now the Tower selects magicians, not by their abilities, but by the amount of money they bring it. It's already rotten. Since when has money alone become enough to decide anything in this place? My friend was indignant that this was also an indicator of her skills. Elena had already created so many medicines. How can anyone not like her? When she looks at her, the world seems to become more beautiful. Our heroine thanked her, and Oswald asked if she had answered him properly. Restful asked if Jane remembered that the girl specialized in collecting evidence. She handed him a recording artifact that she had left in the lab beforehand. So fortunately, the hidden data and samples were in order, and this self-confident guy was begging for forgiveness on his knees in front of her. Therefore, it seemed unnecessary to her to inflate the problem. She decided to feel sorry for him this time. When Jane asked what if he did it next time, Elena answered that everything would be fine. He wouldn't do something like that again. Her friend was surprised why she was so sure of this, because he envied her. You never know what envy may make a man do, just like Killian, who envied Lexion. Our heroine replied that he had nowhere to go except the tower. He himself realized this, so he would not do such things again. Well, and if he did, then she would bring everything to the attention of the Supreme Mage. Oswald stated that this meant that everything should be in perfect order. Then Elena asked if she could stay with her for the night. Her friend replied that of course then it would be necessary to ask the cook to prepare a whole feast. After her friend handed her a leaflet and asked if she had seen it, Restful thought that he was originally supposed to return in a year, but it would happen earlier than in the original. His first battle was at the age of 13. The war for territory that began 7 years ago was over in just 3 months. The Empire was able to conquer these lands as a result of the success of this fierce war. But the boy did not return to his homeland. This was not enough for him, since he believed that this was too little for him to ascend to the desired place. Because of the Emperor's greed, the war never stopped, and monsters emerged in every corner of the continent. The young man mercilessly destroyed everything in his path, and after 7 years, he received the title, the Noble Sword Souls. In the capital of the empire called Aniceum, everyone was whispering that it was interesting that he was as beautiful as they described him. They say that all the enemies fall when the guy comes. When they saw the knights, the women noted that they were simply magnificent. Were they all really that handsome? Then the young man they had all been waiting for appeared, and he was simply incredible. The girl exclaimed that she would definitely marry him when she grew up. Lection informed his subordinates that he would miss the celebration, as he needed to go somewhere. After some time, the guy entered his sister's room, but she was not there. The master immediately asked the maid if she knew where Elena had gone. The maid reported that she left the Duke's house almost immediately after he left. The young man did not expect such a turn of events and was very upset. Then the young man sat down to reread the letters that our heroine had written to him. While he was fighting in heavy battles, Elena asked if everything was okay with him. If he was not forgetting to eat, she really hoped that problems like cold and hunger did not bother him on the battlefield. They say that no news is good news, so she is calm despite the fact that he cannot answer her. But still, there are moments of longing for those letters that he wrote from the academy. Let him always be careful. Lection ordered that from now on, letters from Elena should not be handed to him, but should be forwarded home. Meanwhile, Resfel was thinking that she didn't think the guy would come back a whole year earlier. It seems she'd changed the plot too much. Now she became uneasy because she doesn't know the future, whether Lection even remembers her. It seems that they won't even meet now. The Duke noted that the celebration was organized in his honor, and he was not there. Of course, he is an interesting guy, after which he asked what these 7 years were like for him. The young man said nothing except that he was bored. The man laughed because he was bored in the war. This guy is definitely his son. The young man stated that during all this time, he had clearly proven his importance. The father replied that he understood him, and that from now on, the place of Hylos's heir was his. Then the guy went out into the corridor and told his subordinate that they were going to the tower immediately. The knight objected that they didn't really like people without magical abilities there. Besides, they would have to walk there for a quarter of a day since the tower was in the desert. Lexion replied that it made no difference to him. The ward again objected that the magicians would definitely make a big noise. They would not even let the emperor in unless he warned them of his visit in advance. But the young man didn't care at all, since 7 years of waiting was enough for him. Meanwhile, on the eastern outskirts of the Soul's Empire, in the garden in the western part of the Magic Tower, Elna was talking with her teacher. Jeremiah asked what happened. Her research that she talked about last time seemed to be taking a bit longer. Resfel thought to herself that something had indeed happened. Lupus wanted to destroy all her work, but she shouldn't get so easily upset about something like that. Therefore, she replied that she was mistaken, although she was a qualified scholar of the Western Magic Tower. The teacher exclaimed in what sense, since she had never made mistakes before. Our heroine answered that she can make mistakes like all other people because she is also a person. The magician muttered that if this was really so, then nothing could be done about it. However, if someone intentionally harmed her, then he should certainly inform him about it. Suddenly, an assistant ran up to them and informed them that an uninvited visitor had arrived. Elena said to drive him away, because even the emperor cannot come whenever he wants. But the guy said that Duke Hylos, who had recently inherited the title, had arrived, and he was looking for her. Meanwhile, the young man and the knight stood near the magical formation that protected the tower. Kerr tried to touch her, but it was as if he had been scalded by fire, after which he stated that it seemed that they would not be able to enter there after all. Suddenly, the ball on the door lit up, and a voice came from there asking where they had come from. The young man replied that they were from the mansion of the Duke of Halos, after which the barrier began to dissipate, and the guys noted that they could control it even in parts. When they entered inside, a guy ran up to them and asked why they had come here without warning. The young man bowed and asked forgiveness for not notifying them in advance. The butler looked at Lexion and noted to himself that it was crazy he was seeing such a beautiful person for the first time. The young man immediately asked where his sister Elena was at the moment. The assistant was confused and just looked at him silently because he did not know what to answer. The guy repeated menacingly that Duke Lexion Helos was asking where Resfel was now. After some time, when the guys finally met, Kerr noted to himself that the commander seemed so gloomy and insensitive, and now he was smiling like that. They fought side by side on the battlefield for 7 years, but he never showed him this side of himself. Sometimes, of course, the knight noticed how sad he felt when looking at the pendant, but he didn't think that Lexion could change so much. And the reason for his impatience, for which he rushed here in such anxiety, was the desire to see her who is very beautiful. The young man kissed her hand and said that he missed her very much. Our heroine exclaimed that it had been so long since they had seen each other, but she thought to herself that this was really the little one she knew. The young man replied that so much time had passed, and she was still the same. Elena replied that she could not say the same about him, since she barely recognized him. Lexion said that he was worried that she might not remember him. Riesfel exclaimed that how could she forget him, Suddenly, the teacher appeared coughed and said that it would be better if they went into the guest room and continued their conversation there over a cup of tea, and everyone else would not distract them. Our heroine looked at him and wondered how he could have grown up so handsome. The young man said that it was wonderful that this time they would be able to spend her birthday together. The girl completely forgot about her holiday and did not understand why she felt so awkward. She did not know how to behave in front of him since he had changed so much. After all, 7 years of distance are making themselves felt, and he's probably also uncomfortable. The young man said that all this time he had not forgotten about her for a second, after which he placed the marriage contract in front of her. Elna did not expect that he still had it. The newly minted duke looked her straight in the eyes and proposed to marry him. Restful began to panic that maybe she had misheard it, or that he had gone completely crazy in this war. The young man added that he hoped that she would not say now that back then it was all just a childish joke. The girl thought to herself that it was hard to say now that all this was a joke, because he was looking at her so frighteningly. If we follow this piece of paper, then it turns out that they are engaged. Should she now marry him because of an agreement concluded in childhood? Then she imagined in her mind how she was saying goodbye to everyone and saying that she was marrying the duke, so let them take care of the magic tower. The magicians had tears in their eyes. They asked to look in on them at least sometimes and be happy. In the palace, she will be surrounded by a crowd of servants who will ask a lot of questions about what curtains to hang, what menu to develop, and much more. When she finally has a free minute to return to her experiments, some problems will definitely arise that will need to be solved. And when she thinks that she has finished everything and decides to devote the day to her beloved self, she will be stopped and told that she cannot leave now. She never thought about marriage, and to marry a duke is scary to even imagine. Besides, marriage is one of the most important decisions in life. No matter how beautiful Lexion is, there is nothing you can do about it. Therefore, in her head, there were only thoughts about how to refuse him correctly so that he would not be offended. Therefore, she replied that first she needed time to think about it since it was too unexpected. The young man was upset at first, but then he said that he understood everything and would give her the time she needed, after which he immediately began to leave, saying that he had urgent business. Our heroine was completely confused because he appeared so suddenly and immediately asked her to marry him. What was he even thinking about? The assistant exclaimed how she knew Duke Hylos. Elena replied that she simply owed something to his family in the past. When the young man asked if they were lovers, the girl was surprised that he had even assumed that. Therefore, she replied that nothing of the sort, and quickly began to run away in order to avoid awkward questions. On the way, everyone asked her who this handsome young man was, which put her in an awkward position, so she exclaimed that he was just a boy she knew in childhood. Already in her room, Resfel was thinking about whether it really looked like they were a couple. She just took care of him when he was little. Why did Lexion even decide to do something like this? It seems she seduced him without even knowing it. Our heroine, of course, falls in love with everyone left and right, but not like this. Then she collected her thoughts and decided that marriage was not a game, so she would refuse. But suddenly, there was a knock on the door and an announcement that Duke Hylos had arrived. Downstairs, the butler, looking at the huge pile of gifts, asked what it was all about. The young man replied that they were gifts. What was so unclear about that? And everything was also visible. Meanwhile, the girl decided to look from the second floor to see what all the noise was about. Lexion noticed her and started walking towards her, asking how Elena was doing. Having gone down, our heroine asked what all this was. Smiling sweetly, the guy replied that these were her gifts. Did his sister like them? Restful thought to herself that of course she liked them, but if she accepted them, she would have to give something in return. Therefore, since she decided to refuse, it was better not to accept them. But Lexion unexpectedly said that if she did not mind, he would like to see how and where Elena lives. The girl took him into the laboratory and said that there was nothing much to see there, but it was the place where she worked. It's a complete mess, as I haven't had time to clean up yet, but I hope that won't prevent me from looking around. I thought to myself that it seemed to be said that Lexion could control aura. Perhaps he was interested in similar magic. The young man asked what all these liquids in the flasks were for. The girl explained that this is a potion for improving memory. The effect is only for 1 day, of course, but the memory improves twice as much. And next to it was a translucent potion, which also had high efficiency. The guy ignored everything she said and simply looked at her attentively. Then the girl finally stopped and apologized for seeming to get a little carried away. Lexion replied that it was okay. He really enjoyed listening to her. Our heroine exclaimed that one cannot just say such things, and you can't smile so sweetly either. She thought to herself that it was too dangerous for her heart. The young man leaned towards her and asked if she was shy. Elna panicked. How could she openly ask something like that? After which she muttered that he was just so handsome, and noted to herself that at this rate her face would soon become redder than a tomato. The young man took her hand, put it on his cheek, and said that if he was handsome, then let her look at him more. She could. The girl thought it was very dangerous to continue, so she turned away and told him that it was time to go. Elena needs to submit a report urgently, so she needs to do a little work. The young man noticed that her cheeks had turned red, and replied that, well then they would see each other later. When he left, Risfel thought that it was simply crazy when he managed to mature so much. As Lexion walked down the corridor, the butler suddenly appeared and noted that he had found him. When the young man asked in bewilderment what it was, the guy explained that it was a portal. After some time, Elena thought that Halos should have come to say goodbye, since he said that they would meet later, but he just went back without a word. She then noticed the portal and wondered why it was open right in front of her lab. They should only be in public places. What is this expensive thing doing in front of her room? Could it be that someone gave it to her for personal use, perhaps the Supreme Mage or a teacher? Although why would they do this besides the portal can only be used with the permission of its owner, and no one even notified her. I wonder where it leads. Therefore, I decided to check what place it is connected with. If it works, then good, and if not, then no. When she took a step into it, she found herself in the office of the younger Duke. The young man immediately ran towards her, but Elena did not understand what was going on, and asked what kind of portal it was. The guy explained that he bought it so that he could see her more often, and more conveniently. Our heroine thought to herself that he clearly understood that she felt weak in front of his handsome face. Lexion added that it would be more convenient for her to come home this way. He knows that the girl has already gotten used to life in the tower, but he decided to install a portal so that she could visit the house whenever she wanted, since she spent her entire childhood in the castle. Restful noted to herself that she was sure that this was not the only reason. However, perhaps he really was guided by good intentions. After all, this estate is a home for her, where she wants to return and take a break from everything. When the pause dragged on, Lexion asked what she didn't like. The girl exclaimed that she liked it. She wanted to stay at home from time to time. I noted to myself that the only thing he lacks is a tail to fully resemble a puppy. After which she asked if the Supreme Mage herself had really allowed him to buy this portal. The young man replied that yes, it was worth only 20 million gold pieces. Our heroine was amazed by such a price, because for this money, one could buy several houses in the capital. The young man took Elena by the hand and said that he would like to finally hear her answer. It seemed that he had given her enough time. Last time he came to her in a hurry, so he forgot about the ring. Let the girl marry him. Restful thought to herself that this was a question that would change her whole life, and he gave her only 2 days to think about it, after which she replied that they could not get married. Looking at Lexion's sad expression, the girl didn't understand why he was looking at her like that. Had she committed some kind of crime or what? Then she continued that she still has a lot of ambitions. There is a lot left unexplored and unexplored. She wants to see the world, so she does not plan to get married yet. The young man replied that he understood everything, but he was not going to give up. A few days later, our heroine thought about what he had said. Of course, that he would not give up, but just think the guy comes with an offer every day. Lexion told her that he would provide her with everything she wanted, and that she could do whatever she wanted. Even after the wedding, he swears on his name and the honor of the family. The young man will provide her with everything necessary for her education, and will also do everything so that she will see every corner of the world. But still, no matter what he says, being the wife of a duke is not an easy matter. And what's most important is that they're not even in any kind of relationship. The teacher stated that this time the experiments went very quickly. Excellent samples will appear soon, and this is very good news. After which, she suggested having a cup of tea since they had some free time. The girl said that it was surprising that the Supreme Mage allowed Lexion to buy the portal with such ease. Jeremiah replied that it was not just anyone, but Duke Hylos himself, and that this family provided great support in the development of their tower. Our heroine thought to herself that it was simply due to the power of money, after which she said that she had heard that before this, no one was allowed to purchase portals, but the guy objected that this was 50 years ago. This was not a citizen of the Soul's Empire, but a man from the kingdom on the Black Continent. Now, the empire is located on the territory that is also called the White Continent, and the Black one is located to the south of it. Several centuries ago, this place became known as the home of the first magical creatures. It was said that at one time, there were so many powerful monsters that people could not live there. And about a century ago, the situation changed. However, due to the fact that the Black Continent is far from them, there is very little information about it. Elena could not believe that the Supreme Mage made a deal with it. Then the guy added that, by the way, it seems that the Duke has cleared out visiting the Magic Tower lately. Our heroine answered that, yes, after installing the portal. This is exactly what happens. Jeremiah noted that the time spent together in childhood had created an attachment to her. Elena thought to herself that it would be good if only attachment, after which he hugged her and wished her luck in her research. Restful thanked him. Suddenly, Lection's voice was heard behind her, calling out to her, and the girl wondered how long he had been standing there. The young man came up close to her and asked if her tastes had really changed during his absence. At first, our heroine did not understand what he was talking about and what he meant, but then she remembered how she told Killian that the gentleman was not her type. She liked his younger brother. The young man himself added that she had said in childhood that she liked him, and Elena wondered whether he had really decided that she now liked the teacher. Lection came even closer to her and asked again if her tastes had changed, if she liked someone else. The girl suggested going inside and talking there, since even the walls have ears. Then she took him into the bedroom, sat him down on the sofa, and handed him a cup of tea to calm him down. After which she explained that Jeremiah is her teacher, whom she treats like family, and what he saw today is a common thing for them. Besides, he likes older girls, and now he has an unrequited love for one person. The young man asked, what about her, whether our heroine was in love. When Elena replied that she didn't like older guys, Lexian smiled from ear to ear, as if he had won another war, after which he clarified that it turns out he was still to her taste. Restful thought to herself that it was against the rules to ask this with such a smile, since in fact the grown-up young man really does appeal to her. How can she not like that? She is easily charmed by beauty. Lexion sat down next to her, put her hand on his cheek, and said that if this was so, then let her treat him better. The girl thought to herself that having already repeatedly and cold-bloodedly refused him, what makes him come so close to her? How should she treat him now? The younger Duke kissed her hand, looked into her eyes, and told her to pay attention only to him. Elena noted to herself that this had all become too dangerous, so she pulled away from him and exclaimed that it had somehow become too hot, after which she stated that she could not say this all these days, because she was busy. It was probably not easy for him in the war. She is very glad that he returned safe and sound. The young man replied that the reason he was okay was his sister. Then he held out the pendant. Restful noted that this was the same magic stone that she had given him 7 years ago. It seemed to her that he had changed so much since childhood, but it turns out that Lexion remained the same. Then the young man took her hand again and asked if she could be his friend. Kerr exclaimed in surprise. What did he just say? Could it really be that the commander had been following Elena for several days with a proposal of marriage? A few minutes ago, the young man asked if something had happened to the gentleman, since his face was not looking good today. He was very happy when Lexion suddenly spoke and finally decided to share his experiences with him. But what he heard shocked him, so he asked if he really thought he had acted appropriately. Noticing that Lexion had begun to glare at him, the assistant immediately asked for forgiveness and added that it had slipped out of frustration, after which he said that it is clear that since childhood he had looked only at her, and when he was at war, his feelings only grew. But how can he be sure that the lady feels the same? Even if that were the case, who would agree to get married just like that? You can't argue that the gentleman is very handsome and talented, plus he also became a duke, so there is a possibility of consent. However, Elena spent her childhood with him, and most likely perceives him as her younger brother, which is why she refused him. The young man objected that his sister said it was because she had too much ambition. Kerr replied that the reason may indeed be this, but he hears these words as a refusal, so as not to offend her little brother, whom she cares for. In any case, since his feelings for her are unchanged, then let him start everything from the very beginning with friendship and not with marriage. So Lexion offered friendship to our heroine, and added that he had recently been too hasty when he spoke about marriage, so he would like to start everything from scratch. Our heroine answered that it was fine, but on one condition. They would only date for 3 months, and after that time, they would talk again about whether they should continue or not. She thought to herself that she did not want to be an obstacle on the young man's path in his future endeavors, and she herself wanted to try many things. And the guy replied that he agreed. If Elena wants this, then they will do it. The term, of course, is very short, but if it is better for her, then okay. The girl thought to herself that all this time he called her sister, and now he addresses her by name. She can directly feel how her immunity is weakening. You can go crazy! What if she herself wants to continue after these 3 months? After which she exclaimed that she thought it was worth waiting a little before he called her by name. The young man asked what was wrong with that, since she addressed him by name, and didn't she really like it when he called her that? Our heroine muttered that this was not the case, but she thought to herself that it was just the opposite. Lexion said that he would then continue to call her by name. He had heard that lovers call each other exactly that way, or come up with nicknames. Perhaps she likes them better. Elena panicked. What other nickname does he really want her dead? So she exclaimed that this was too much. Then the young man said that tomorrow was her birthday. He would like to arrange a grand feast, but most likely she would not like that right. When the girl nodded, the guy stated that he thought the same, so he decided to prepare something else, whether she would be able to devote time to it tomorrow. Restful replied that she had one meeting in the morning, so it would be after lunch. The guy asked what other meeting. Our heroine explained that she would need to meet with the Supreme Mage. The expression on the young man's face immediately changed to a friendly one, after which the young man kissed her hand and said that then they would see each other tomorrow. He would be waiting impatiently. When Lexion left, Elena wondered how she was going to survive these 3 months. It seemed like her heart would just break and she would die. The next day, our heroine dressed up in a chic dress and thought that since she decided to meet the Duke, then this should be enough. In the corridor, she ran into a teacher who immediately congratulated her on the holiday, after which he handed her the magic book and said that it was his gift. The girl thanked him and noted to herself that she had just wanted to find out more about minerals and how he had guessed so well. Jeremiah replied that he was very glad that he had pleased her and now let her go since the Supreme Mage was waiting for her. Elena doesn't know why, but every birthday Karen calls her to check on her condition. The woman greeted him warmly, congratulated him on his birthday, and asked him to give her hand. As soon as she touched it, a magical glow appeared, and Resfel felt its strong energy. Having completed the check, the Supreme Mage stated that everything was in perfect order. Now the birthday girl can go and celebrate her birthday. Well, when the girl left, Karen's face changed, and she thought to herself that she needed to start getting ready little by little. Our heroine went out the door and thought about the need to prepare for the meeting with the Duke. But the young man appeared on his own with a bouquet of flowers and a small box. The young man tried to shout to Elena, but she was looking only at his shirt, which was about to come unbuttoned. Then the guy congratulated her on her birthday, handed her a bouquet, and told her to open the box. Looking at the necklace, Restful wondered if these were mermaid tears. They are the first item on every lady's wish list in the Empire, but they are so expensive that they make everyone around them cry. Our heroine exclaimed that they were very expensive, but Lexion said that he thought they were beautiful because they matched the color of her eyes. Didn't she like them? The girl replied that it was not about that, but she thought to herself that for Hylos, this amount probably did not matter at all. After which the young man took this decoration and put it on Elena's neck, who thought to herself that although their relationship was limited in time, she thought that they could still give each other such gifts. The young man looked at her and said that it suited her very well, and the girl thanked him in return. Our heroine suddenly thought about the fact that when she sees roses for some reason, without any reason, she remembers Killian. Lexion noticed that something was wrong and asked what happened if everything was okay. Restful thought to herself that this must be a sore subject for him. Could she even talk about it? But the guy himself asked if thoughts about his older brother had really entered her head. Elena immediately exclaimed that he had misunderstood everything, so he would immediately say that she had never liked the elder Halos. Killian used to leave roses near her room. She thought it was a gift from Lexion, so she was very happy, but the guy got it all wrong. The young man replied that he had heard him confess his love to her when they were still children. That's why he gave her roses. But if she always remembers her older brother when she looks at them, he might go crazy with jealousy. That is why I prepared a bouquet of roses for her, so that from now on, just by looking at them, she would think of him. Then, overcome by the excitement of their first date, they completely forgot that there was a portal in the Halos house and went off in a carriage. It was both joyful and awkward to see everyone after so long. The young man replied that it was good that he didn't throw a party thank you for her time today. Elena replied that it was nothing, but she thought to herself that her heart was beating just from looking at him. It seemed that she had completely gone crazy. The girl looked at him and could not believe that he was her lover. She was going to ignore it, but he seemed to attract her gaze. Her heart was jumping, and it seemed as if she was going crazy. But she can't fall in love with him, even more. Our heroine understands that he really likes her, but more than anything in the world, she loves her job. Then they arrived at their destination, and the young man gave her his hand so that she could get out of the carriage. Elena immediately thought to herself that this was another test for her. Therefore, I reminded myself once again that I shouldn't fall in love with him. Let him remember his precious experiments. At the restaurant, Lexion said that he had ordered a full table for them to start with, and if she wanted more, she could just say so, sir. Resfel thought to herself that this place was usually packed with guests, and they even wanted to lure the chef to the imperial palace. But he refused. Our heroine could not even imagine that she would bathe in luxury. Now her taste is clear. When the guy asked if she had enjoyed it, Elena replied that she had never eaten anything tastier in her life, although it would be better to say that she now understands why the emperor wanted to invite the local cook. But the food in the Halos house and in the tower is also delicious. But still next time, the young man shouldn't book the entire restaurant. The young man asked if she wouldn't be uncomfortable because of the noise around her. The girl replied that she really didn't like crowds, but a little commotion wouldn't hurt, and she didn't think people would make much noise. Then Lexion said that there was a lake called Antisium. Nearby, had the girl heard about it? Resfel replied that yes, she had been told that it was a very famous place, so she and Jane went there on an excursion. The young man replied that it was a pity that he was not the first person she would go there with, but perhaps it was worth going to the lake and taking a walk at the same time. On the way, the guy said that today is her birthday. Wouldn't she like something special? Our heroine replied that she hadn't thought about it at all. After moving to the magic tower, she was always so busy that she didn't remember her holiday at all. Halos noted that she really loves to work. The girl replied that, yes, creating something new and using magic is excellent. Then she saw a couple in front of her, and the young man looked like Sivelle. This is the same scoundrel who insulted Lexion several years ago when the Duke held a celebration in honor of the victory in the war. How nice it would be to run up to him right now and punch him in the insolent mug. But she doesn't want him and Halos to meet. Therefore, she suggested to the young man to go in the other direction. But the acquaintance she least wanted to meet noticed them himself and came up to them with the words that they had not seen the Duke for a long time. Lexion replied that indeed, he also sees that each time he is with different girls. The young man had only recently returned to the Empire, but he had already managed to change his girlfriend 3 times in such a short time. His companion immediately asked for forgiveness and said that she urgently needed to leave. Sivelle immediately ran after her and said that they would see each other a little later. Our heroine found this situation very amusing, and she laughed sincerely, after which she asked for forgiveness since she did it too loudly. But the guy replied that it was okay. He was glad to hear her laugh. It seems that the young man was at least a little useful this time, since he always felt indebted to her. The girl always appeared when he found himself in a difficult situation, and stood up for him, holding out her hand to him. She was as small as he was, but braver, more mature, and possessing an endless warmth of soul. Elena replied that he was embarrassing her. She just wanted to help him, but she thought to herself that she couldn't turn away from the frightened baby. Lexion added that he also wanted to protect her, just as she always protected him, so he wanted to help her. Then suddenly they started launching fireworks, and the guy said that it was in her honor in moments of danger. He wants to be in front of Resfel and not behind, and the young man also wants to stay next to her always. A few days later, a regular meeting of the Magic Tower was scheduled. It is held quarterly, where the High Mage calls the leadership to discuss important issues. The first time she participated, she was trembling with excitement. After some time, Karen materialized in the room and ordered a report on the situation. The head of the Eastern Tower, Jacob, reported that a few days ago, strange movement was noticed on the Black Continent. According to the researcher, someone began to control the monsters. Elena thought to herself that magical creatures act on instinct. They are stronger than people, but they have no intelligence and system, so they can be dealt with. But if someone is able to gather them together and use them as an army, then there will be trouble. The woman asked if he was sure that his researcher had been able to see clearly that someone was controlling the monsters. Jacob replied that he said that he looked from heaven and saw a man standing in the midst of them, and they did not attack him, but it seemed as if the monsters were moving, following his gestures. There has never been a time when magical monsters have not attacked people, so it might seem as if he was controlling them. The Supreme Mage concluded that they had no precise evidence, so it was necessary to thoroughly explore the Black Continent. After the meeting, our heroine told the teacher that if there really was someone there who could control monsters, then it was necessary to prepare for war. In this world, there is nothing strange about a war against monsters, because during the military campaign, Lexion not only fought for territory, but also encountered monsters. Well, if someone on the Black Continent has learned to control these creatures, and also species with intelligence have appeared, if they suddenly decide to attack the White Continent, then there will be trouble, but she hopes that nothing will happen. Reflections were interrupted by the voices of spirits that came to her after she left the house of Halos. Elena met with different ones, as Rennie said. All the spirits came here, Rennie and Toto. Also, the spirit of fire. Coco, also the spirit of wind. Bibi. These four whom she met before the others love her most. And now they can even communicate without words. Then she remembered that the boys were flying all over the world and asked if they, by any chance, knew anything about the Black Continent. The rabbit replied that no, the demonic energy there is too strong, so spirits do not appear there. Toto also added that long ago, spirits were born on the Black Continent, but due to demonic energy, most of them became monsters. But compared to those that exist now, their number is insignificant. Our heroine asked if there are still spirits that have turned into monsters. The guys answered that it is impossible to say for sure, but there is definitely some. There is such strong demonic energy that it absorbs the spirit even after one touch. But everything is different if you go there with the hostess. Besides, the spirits that have already been influenced by this energy can also return to their previous form. They are, of course, not completely sure, but it can be assumed that such a possibility exists. Elena thought to herself that she wants to save those who were affected by demonic energy. Meanwhile, Karen was thinking about asking Jacob and his researchers to double-check everything, but she had a bad feeling. Suddenly, there was a loud ringing sound, and the woman noted that there was some problem with the portal. About 50 years ago, one of the kings on the Black Continent was sold a portal that was connected to this place. The reason she gave permission in the first place was in case the territory fell to the onslaught of monsters. There had to be some way to ask for help, so she couldn't refuse. However, it cannot be that in order to destroy something with the magic she has invested, it would take a power no less than her own. If indeed someone has appeared who can control monsters, and he has power equal to her, then the White Continent is in danger. The woman was angry and thought about what kind of person dared to provoke the Supreme Magician. Meanwhile, our heroine came to the library, and it would not be an exaggeration to say that this place contains books from all over the world. There are bookshelves there as tall as a 3-story building, a place so big you can get lost. Previously, Elna often got lost there and had not visited the old book archives for a long time. If all the old editions are collected there, then there should be information about the Black Continent. It would also be good to read about the spirit casters. But having learned about this library, the girl often came there, but there was no information about spirits anywhere. After some time, she finally managed to find a book about the Black Continent. It was said there that a man with strange abilities that were different from magical ones died in that place. He used a strange power, often looking into the void, talking to someone, and his abilities were closer to nature than to magic. And they called him a spirit caster. As a result, the strange man ended his life on the Black Continent. Resfel has been looking for information about them since childhood, but no matter what book she took, there was no mention of them anywhere. Our heroine decided that it would be better to read about the Black Continent first. This area was once a place teeming with monsters, so people could not survive there. Exactly a century ago, some still managed to settle in that place, and they were the descendants of the spirit caster, namely, the children born to the younger sister of that man, having found the bodies of their ancestors. They headed to the Black Continent in an attempt to find a safe place. However, the time of their stay on the continent increased, and eventually they settled there. Therefore, after many years, the whole kingdom began to flourish. But at the most interesting point, the story ended as the pages turned out to be empty. Our heroine couldn't believe that this was all. There had to be something else. But in the end, Resfel was unable to find any more information. The current changes on the Black Continent, the past spirit summoner, and the kingdom founded by his ancestors. Is there a connection between these facts? In any case, most likely the portal of the Supreme Mage may be located in that place. If this is really so, then why did the woman give permission for this? She was told that Karen is over 400 years old. Perhaps there is some connection with the spirit caster, but it is better not to make hasty conclusions. Jacob and the explorers of the Eastern Tower headed to the Black Continent. Everything can be sorted out when they return, but the journey from the White Continent to that territory takes several weeks. She really hopes that nothing bad will happen. Meanwhile, in the Duchy of Halos, a young man was cutting his own hair. Elena was constantly on his mind, so he thought about how much he wanted to make her happy. After a while, Kerr exclaimed that the commander had just said something. He thought he had misheard. Something had Lexian done something again while the guy had been busy these past few days. The Duke calmly repeated that he had decided to enter into a relationship with Resfel for 3 months. The assistant had mixed feelings, so he shouted that his lordship should have opposed this. And the guy is wondering why the commander suddenly decided to take care of his haircut. So that's the reason this isn't even an official relationship. The young man replied that in any case, he did not want to ignore Elena's opinion. The assistant thought to himself that perhaps this was even for the best. The lady had a lot of work, and she was the person who had not accepted the Duke's proposal of marriage, and perhaps she would refuse him more gently later. For a girl like this, accepting a temporary relationship is already a great achievement. After which, the young man said that then, during this time, he must give it his all. Since this is how it turned out, the guy should do everything possible so that she cannot retreat from his charm. The young man replied that he was just about to act according to this plan. Meanwhile, at the Oswald estate, Jane was delighted that Mr. Lexion had proposed to her friend. What did she do? The girl hopes that she agreed, but our heroine replied that she refused. To the surprised question why Elena answered that she herself knows what she likes to work most of all. If she marries Hylos and becomes a duchess, it will be difficult for her to continue the life of a magician. Although the young man said that he would take care of this, it wasn't that Resfel didn't trust him, but she couldn't bear the burden of that title. Jane replied that her friend loves her job more than anyone else. However, she had wanted to hear her love story for a long time, so it was all a little upsetting. But our heroine added that everything was over. She and Lexion had decided to become temporary lovers. When Oswald exclaimed that this was really true, Elena asked her to calm down, because this was only a temporary relationship. The girl objected that, nevertheless, it was very interesting to hear that she was in one. She knew that she was not mistaken, because the gentleman had loved Resfel since childhood. Her eyes did not deceive her. Her intuition does not fail her. The guy has followed her since childhood when she called him Mr. Lexion. He did not like it, but he didn't care that Jane always called him Master. That is from that very time the young man loved Elena. Our heroine was very surprised and asked if this could really happen. The friend replied that of course Lexion had returned to the Empire, and they said that not only the ladies of the world wanted to get it, but also the imperial family. It's just an incredible love story that this boy from childhood has tender feelings for her. In fact, there was no such thing that Resfel did not think about this. The young man always followed her and still kept to himself that promise that was written as a joke. Did he really love her from that very time? That is why I proposed and intended to enter into a romantic relationship. Our heroine began to slowly realize that the young man had really loved her all this time. The friend exclaimed that she was very glad to see Elena in such a light, because her happiness could not help but make her happy. Of course, it's interesting to see how hard she works, and that she enjoys it very much. But sometimes she would like to see Resfel tremble. Jane was afraid that she would be the only one who boasted about her love relationships. Her friend was always happy for her. As for herself, it's very good that she now has such an opportunity. Suddenly, a maid ran up to them and, out of breath, announced that the imperial family's carriage was heading there. A little earlier, it was reported in the imperial palace that the appointed Duke of Lexian Helos, after the postponement of the victory banquet, first went to the magic tower. He was also recently in a restaurant in the capital, at a personal meeting with Elena Resfel, a magician supported by his family. Tarakan Sols, who is the emperor, exclaimed, "What kind of personal meeting does it mean as between a man and a woman?" The guy replied that it was said that he rented Lake Centesium and set off fireworks. Obviously, they are in a romantic relationship. The man noted to himself that if the duchy made a mage, its mistress, it would pose a huge threat to the imperial family. I really wished that this information turned out to be false, after which I ordered the secretary to call the second prince Aster. The girls thought to themselves that the imperial family seemed to have no etiquette at all. The second prince is a real womanizer, and a fool whom even the emperor gave up on. Why would such a man need to go to the county of Oswaldus? A young man approached them and said it was nice to meet them. His name was Aster Sols. Grimacing, our heroine replied that the feeling was mutual and also introduced herself. The young man noted that he was a happy man, since he came here specifically to meet her. Elena didn't like that he ignored Jane's greeting, and she didn't understand what he wanted from her. It is almost never the case that members of the imperial family come to the nobles themselves to pay a personal visit. There must be a very good reason. The guy said that since the magic tower refused even their dynasty, he thought that he could meet her by coming here. It must have been fate itself that they met in this place. Our heroine thought to herself, "What kind of idiocy is this?" It turns out he used her friend just for the sake of meeting her, after which she said that since he had acted so meanly towards the Oswald family in order to meet with her, then what business did he have with her? The guy replied that he didn't want to offend anyone, he just dreamed of seeing Elena. And there were many obstacles on the way, and he thought to himself that usually girls tremble just seeing his smile. But what's wrong with this girl? But naturally, although it was a temporary relationship, Elena's partner was one of the few handsome men in the empire, and according to the original plot, her lover was the main character Hayes. Aster decided that he needed to get out his secret weapon and said that he came because he really wanted to talk to Resfel. He would really like to become at least a little closer, but he thought to himself that there was not a single girl who would not succumb to such a pitiful manner. In his imagination, Jane and Elena immediately swam and were ready for anything, but the reality turned out to be different. Our heroine replied that she didn't really want to get closer to him. The guy didn't understand how this was possible. Why wasn't it she who didn't want to get closer to him? It couldn't be. After all, he was the prince of the empire, and such a handsome man, and much better than Lexion. The girl added that the young man was not at all to her taste, and therefore was not interesting. I noted to myself that this was an effective remedy against Killian, so I can try it on Sols as well. When asked what it meant not to her taste, Elena replied that it meant that she could not get close to him, therefore in that case, she would take her leave. Leaving the young man in complete confusion, the girls turned around and walked away. On the way, our heroine said that of course she knew that the second prince was not a particularly pleasant person, but not to such an extent. She thought to herself that it seemed like the emperor was on edge right now, because she and Lexion were an alliance of the two most dangerous people in the empire. However, the prince dares to ignore and use. Jane Aster is really unpleasant to her, and her friend muttered that Sols seems to be interested in her. Elena replied that this was a way to keep the Hylos duchies under control, because the imperial family was always afraid of them. Oswald noted that in that case, they knew that she had been seeing Lexion a lot lately. Our heroine replied that, yes, that is exactly why the second prince came. They want to break off her relationship with the young man. Elena thought that it was obvious that that narrow-minded man had only relied on his appearance when he seduced her, but that was simply ridiculous, since he was not fit to hold a candle to Hylos. It is obvious that the second prince has suffered disgrace, but will not be able to complain to the emperor. He is like a discarded pawn, since he is not the heir. The emperor probably does not have high hopes, so such rudeness is quite forgivable. In addition, the girl is the main researcher of the magic tower, and he was the first to look down on her friend. What else could one expect from members of the imperial family? While Elena was taking a bath, she was informed that the second prince had left the Oswald mansion. In this castle, she had her own bedroom, with a huge bathroom and an extensive wardrobe. After some time, Jane looked in on her and said that Hayes had arrived. This guy was the main character in the original story and is the current Marquis of Crete. Our heroine immediately said that she wished her a good time and that they would see each other a little later. But her friend objected that she wanted to have dinner with her. So how about we all go together? Thanks to the girl, this was not their first meeting. They had already seen each other several times and greeted each other. So after thinking a little, Elena replied that, why not, she was not against it. Oswald added that Hayes actually brought a friend, so it would be a little awkward. Resfel asked in surprise what other friend. Jane answered that it was the Marchioness Leader Hasnell. Elena hasn't seen him, but she knows his name, a minor character who gave love advice to the main character. He is not a womanizer, but was very popular among the ladies. Noticing that the girl was thinking about something, Oswald said that if she was uncomfortable, she didn't have to go. But our heroine exclaimed that this was absolutely not true. She was just a little confused. I thought to myself that, how could I miss the opportunity to see the couple from the original story making out? When the guys met and started hugging, Elena noted that it was expected from the main character. Even the look was excellent. Jane should be happy. A young man approached our heroine and introduced himself as Leiter Hasnell. Elena thought to herself that she was very surprised when the guy winked at her. The young man did not take his eyes off her and thought that it was good that he followed his friend. A few hours earlier, he learned that the young man was going to Oswald County. Therefore, he stated that in order to meet with Lady Jane, it seems he spoke about the fact that she has a friend who is a magician. Hayes replied that if he meant Mrs. Elena, then yes, she is a very capable magician. Leter tried his best to persuade his friend to take him with him, and in the end they met. This girl, in fact, is Resfel. She has a beautiful appearance, an elegant aristocratic posture, and a very sweet voice. Finally, the day came when the young man could experience such feelings. Our heroine sat at a barbecue party, watching her friend and her lover. Hayes fed her, and the girl became embarrassed and said that they were not alone. When the young man turned to her abruptly, Elena was a little frightened by the surprise, but asked what Marquis Hasnell wanted to say. The young man objected that she could address him as informally as she did others. Resfel replied that if he himself was comfortable with it, then of course. The young man added that he had heard that she was a sorceress and that it was simply amazing. Elena thought to herself that after getting into the magic tower, everyone she met at work reacted exactly like that she was an amazing magician. To be honest, she was already tired of hearing praise so often. So she answered, "Thank you," with a displeased expression on her face. Suddenly, the Marquis asked if she was in a relationship with someone by chance. Resfel was taken aback by this question and thought to herself that she simply thought he was drunk because his cheeks were red. The guy was stuttering and he was breathing heavily. In fact, our heroine was weak in romance, knowing nothing but research. However, Leoter actively expressed his feelings and eventually achieved that Elena, who was indifferent to the relationship, also understood it. After which the girl replied that yes, there is someone with whom she is in a romantic relationship. The young man thought to himself, why is he surprised at all? Isn't it natural? Did he really think that he would be the only one who fell for such a beautiful lady? Resfel thought that even though this was only a 3-month relationship, they were lovers anyway, so she asked for forgiveness. Leoter replied that she didn't need to apologize to him. She was just a little sorry that he was late, after which he asked if they were engaged. The girl muttered that no, but to herself, she thought that there was a marriage contract, but it was concluded with a childhood friend. Besides, their relationship could end in 3 months, and they would end up being temporary lovers. So she answered honestly. The young man immediately blossomed and replied that he was glad to hear it, which meant he still had a chance. Elena had some kind of disgusting feeling inside, but it seemed like she wasn't cheating, so she thought that she didn't have to worry about it. After some time, Lexian appeared at the estate, and Jane noted that they had not seen each other for a long time. Upon seeing him, our heroine was very surprised and wondered what the Duke was doing here. A friend asked him how he had come to see her, and whether he had really come to see Resfel. The young man replied that yes, he had heard that the girl was in Oswald County, so he had come to visit the two of them. When our heroine collected her thoughts and approached them, The young man said that he was very glad to see Elena. Jane noted to herself that he called her by name. They like each other, but still are only in a temporary relationship. How sad. But if we talk about Mr. Lexian, then temporary relations may well develop into ordinary ones. So she smiled slyly and said that since they were all gathered together, why don't they have some tea? Half an hour ago, a friend exclaimed that they needed to get ready, so let her wait a little. The young man was walking and thinking that Elena seemed surprised by his sudden visit. It was very cute, even if her red hair is disheveled, even if she is in simple clothes, she still remains herself. But suddenly, he heard voices discussing Mrs. Restful and saying that she was cool. The young man realized that this was a conversation between two maids in the laundry. This place was several dozen meters away from the guy, but Lexian was a swordmaster and could use aura. One of the maids exclaimed that she was very cool at this age. She was already the main researcher of the magic tower. Another one picked up that she was also good-looking. Seeing her with Mrs. Jane, it made one's eyes happy. The guy thought to himself that, of course, this is not why he became a swordmaster, but he wanted to listen. Suddenly, one of the girls said that she was so amazing. Maybe that's why the second prince and the marquise fell in love with her. A representative of the imperial family arrived and said that he wanted to get closer to the lady. Leoter also tries in every possible way to attract the attention of our heroine. Lexian was already starting to get angry that these two were confessing their feelings to her. After all, how dare they even approach her while he was not around? But the maid added that she flatly refused them, saying that they were not her type. Elena also answered positively to the Marquis's question about whether she had a lover. After some time, Jane exclaimed that everything was ready and that the Duke should quickly come to them. After tea, the boys said goodbye to Oswald and agreed to meet again soon. Just as our heroine was thinking about going to the shopping district, Lexian asked if she was going there. If you want to use the portal, wouldn't it be better to go to the Hylos estate? Resfel thought to herself that the portal in the shopping district was connected to the garden of the magic tower. She usually moved like this. If you go into the portal of the mansion, you can go straight to the laboratory, so this method is also not bad. On the way in the carriage, she noticed that the awkwardness that the girl had already forgotten had reappeared. Suddenly, the guy said that before tea, he was walking in the garden and accidentally overheard the maids talking. They were talking about how yesterday 2 men wanted to get closer to her. Elena panicked that the inevitable had finally overtaken her and exclaimed that it was not what he thought. She told them that she already had a lover. Lexian recalled that the maids were wondering who her lover was, and they suggested that it was Duke Halos, since the two of them had been friends since childhood, and today he had just arrived. It turns out that Elena herself said that he is her lover, she herself personally. But suddenly, the girl added that in fact, the Marquise asked if she was engaged. The girl answered that this was not so, since they were in fact not engaged. The young man suddenly darkened, and our heroine managed to notice it. But he immediately collected his thoughts and replied that it was nothing to worry about right now. They only had a temporary relationship, and since it was true, everything was fine. In reality, everything was not okay. He pretended that everything was okay. Because of Elena's worries about him, it must have just been uncomfortable for her to hide it. It's not that the guy didn't expect such a situation, because she's a very attractive girl. So it's inevitable that some bugs would flock to hers. But who is the Marquis Hasnell? It is necessary to find out, in order to understand what he is. But it's already a good sign that Resfel is worried about him. When it comes to other men, it seems she herself doesn't know yet. But it's okay, they still have enough time. Near the estate, they were immediately met by the cook, who exclaimed that the lady should definitely have dinner before leaving, because he would prepare the best dish. Our heroine thought to herself that this was burdensome, since in general she wanted to go straight to the office and go through the portal. But the young man leaned over to her and told her to have dinner first, and then go on about her business. Because this was her home, Resfel could even rest a little. The girl noted to herself that in principle, yes, there was nothing urgent in the magic tower yet. So she answered that she didn't mind. After a while, Elna entered her room where she stayed, before leaving the mansion for several years. Day and night, she devoted herself to research in this place. Everything was so clean, and all the research objects were in the same condition. The guy replied that he had instructed the maids to look after the place. There had been some minor repairs, but it didn't make much of a difference. For our heroine, this was simply amazing, so memories came flooding back. how little Lexian often came to her and told her that he had asked her not to call him Lord. The Duke looked at her and was so happy that she was here again in the place where they had grown up together. Elena thought that since she had come after a long time, she might as well stay the night, so she asked if she could sleep here. When the young man suddenly blushed, our heroine at first did not understand what was wrong with him. Had she really said something wrong? After which she exclaimed that she was just staying overnight. Let him forgive her, since she expressed herself strangely. Lexian objected that it was not worth it. It was his mistake, he had misunderstood everything. After which he said that she could stay in the mansion as long as she wanted, and at any time. Then the Duke added that it was time for him to go, and that she should have a good rest. Our heroine did not understand what was happening to her. It seemed that her heart would just jump out. How did she even get the courage to say that she would stay here for the night? Perhaps go to the tower right now. The young man will not hold her back, but remembering his puppy-like appearance, it is better to leave everything as is. The maid noted that the mistress's skin had become even better. It had been good in childhood, but now it had become downright softer. The girl noted to herself that Rosie remained the same, which is why she felt so calm. She was the assistant who had been looking after her since she was a child. Lexian must have sent her specifically knowing how uncomfortable she was with being served. After some time, Elena was completely ready, and the maids exclaimed that she was very beautiful. When she said that she didn't need makeup because she had no plans after dinner anyway, the maids were very disappointed. However, Restful doesn't even apply makeup properly in the Magic Tower. Most assistants of noble families are used to applying makeup generously, but she doesn't like it. After some time at the table, our heroine thought about what luxury could it really be, because this meal was with the head of the house. The young man approached her with one of the dishes and told her to eat more, because it was all prepared for her. Elena realized that she was eating soup and didn't even notice what Lexian was doing, and he brought food from the other end of the table. What is surprising is how unusual it is to see a young man in the place of the head of the house. As a child, he always tried to sit next to her. Then the guy was, of course, much smaller than now, even a little bit missing those times. When the girl put on her pajamas before going to bed, she asked what kind of outfit it was, whether it was too vulgar. The maid smiled and looked at her in a strange way, and she found this very suspicious. Perhaps because it was her first time wearing such clothes, she felt a little awkward. Lexian suddenly appeared in the bedroom and announced that a letter had arrived from his father. Restful screamed loudly in surprise and tried to cover herself with her hands. The young man immediately asked for forgiveness for entering without permission. He would leave the letter and leave. When the guy quickly ran away, Elena thought to herself that he didn't see her naked. She reacted too harshly. Besides, even if it was temporary, they were still lovers. He was just feeling awkward for nothing. The young man now could not get the image of her in this outfit out of his head, and he thought about how he had almost embraced her. If he hadn't had the letter in his hands, he would have immediately hugged her, perhaps even kissed her. But he immediately decided to throw all these thoughts aside, since he could not allow himself to do this without her permission. Come to think of it, the Duke said he was traveling all over the continent. Would she ever be able to, too? The man wrote that he was currently in the southern part of the continent. There were stunning landscapes and very tasty food. When she had time, she should also go on a trip. How was she doing in general? Did she meet Lexian as soon as the title inheritance was completed? He immediately ran to the Magic Tower. I wonder if everything is okay with the two of them. In fact, something has been bothering him lately. Now his friends are worried about his hair loss. This hasn't happened to him yet, but he's afraid that it will start falling out. At first, Elena reassured herself that he was just that old. After all, he was 50 years old. But in any case, how could the protagonist's father suffer from baldness? And most likely it was genetic. This is just awful. Maybe we should come up with a cure for baldness. Still, the Duke helped her a lot and treated her like his own daughter, not leaving her on the street. After some time, our heroine has already begun to look for recipes and necessary ingredients. At the same time, I was thinking that baldness was common in the imperial family. Perhaps that's why the prince didn't become the main character. It is necessary to find out if there is a herb that will help to cope with this disease. Suddenly, Bibi flew to her, who said that everyone was exploring the Black Continent for the sake of the mistress, and she flew in to report this. Elena didn't ask for a special study, but they decided to do it anyway for her sake. Therefore, she thanked him and told him to always be careful if it was dangerous, then under no circumstances should she do it. Suddenly, our heroine saw that there were slightly burnt feathers on her chest, so she exclaimed, "What is this?" The bird explained that Coco had accidentally spewed fire while she was sleeping, and it had gotten on her feathers. Restful asked if she was okay, if she was in pain. The wind spirit answered that everything was fine, but the girl objected that her feathers were burnt. Bibi replied that it was okay, they would grow back faster if you used dragon grass. Since the whole plant is black and its leaves look like dragon claws, that is why it was given the name. Dragon grass. Elena didn't know that it had an effect on growth, since it was poisonous to humans, and couldn't be used as food. But Restful didn't think there was so much of it in the garden on the West Tower. It is necessary to collect everything as soon as possible and use it for research. But there is one thing. Even if it has medicinal properties, it is still poisonous, and to use it as an elixir, the poison must be removed. Then she ran into the teacher, who asked where she had gone. The girl replied that she had looked into the garden for a short while. Noticing that she had dragon grass in her hands, the guy asked where she was going to use it. Elna replied that she wanted to develop a cure for baldness from it. The young man asked how she knew it would help. Our heroine muttered that she had read in an old book the writing was badly damaged, so it was difficult to fully understand everything. Jeremiah replied that he understood everything, and that he would eagerly await the medicine she would create. Restful thanked him, and said that there was one problem. It was necessary to get rid of the poison in the dragon grass. If there was research on this, then it would be possible to significantly reduce the times. It dawned on the young man that Jacob had recently studied this plant, and the materials were probably in his office. While the guy was looking for what she needed, our heroine asked why the research materials of the head of the Eastern Tower were in his office. The young man replied that she should know that Jacob was a practicing magician. In fact, he used to be very keen on research. But the reason he gave it up was because of the dragon grass. Our heroine thought to herself, "What kind of plant is this that even a powerful wizard couldn't control?" Then the teacher handed her the research and said that these were materials from about 20 years ago. There should not be any badly damaged areas, and to let him know if there was any progress. The girl flipped through everything that was written there and noticed that on the last page, it was said that dragon grass is garbage. Even if it has medicinal properties, it is still poisonous, and to use it as an elixir, the poison must be removed. Then she ran into the teacher, who asked where she had gone. The girl replied that she had looked into the garden for a short while. Noticing that she had dragon grass in her hands, the guy asked where she was going to use it. Elna replied that she wanted to develop a cure for baldness from it. The young man asked how she knew it would help. Our heroine muttered that she had read in an old book the writing was badly damaged, so it was difficult to fully understand everything. Jeremiah replied that he understood everything, and that he would eagerly await the medicine she would create. Restful thanked him, and said that there was one problem. It was necessary to get rid of the poison in the dragon grass. If there was research on this, then it would be possible to significantly reduce the times. It dawned on the young man that Jacob had recently studied this plant, and the materials were probably in his office. While the guy was looking for what she needed, our heroine asked why the research materials of the head of the Eastern Tower were in his office. The young man replied that she should know that Jacob was a practicing magician. In fact, he used to be very keen on research. But the reason he gave it up was because of the dragon grass. Our heroine thought to herself, "What kind of plant is this that even a powerful wizard couldn't control?" Then the teacher handed her the research and said that these were materials from about 20 years ago. There should not be any badly damaged areas, and to let him know if there was any progress. The girl flipped through everything that was written there and noticed that on the last page, it was said that dragon grass is garbage.